Naga's Love by Celeste King.
Nagas of Protheka, Book 3.
Freedom is fleeting in Protheka when you're human.
So when Farra was sold to the snakes of Nagaland, she expected the worst.
What she didn't expect was to be Nashaer's object of affection.
He's given her a life of safety, security, freedom, even love.
All she has to offer him is her bruised and battered heart.
Will it be enough?
Want access to content YouTube is too shy to share? You can find it unabridged and unedited on worldsofprotheka.com.
Use code YouTube30 for your own little personal discount, courtesy of the Nagas.
Don't forget to show your support in the comments below.
Give us a like and a follow so we can continue to bring you exhilarating tales from the world of Protheka.
You're listening to Celeste King's The Naga's Love.
Chapter 1. Farra. Laughter seeps into the darkening streets of low-town Liiandor from the restaurant, a warm glow shining from the visible windows. I watch as the people inside talk and eat, carrying on cheerily with one another, as if all is right in the world, as if they don't know what it's like to be hungry. The boastful hum of their activity grates on me as I press myself further against the wall of the alley, blending into the growing shadows while the hollow ache in my stomach spreads. Hunger has always been one of, if not the most, predominant influence in my life. It's been the only consistency I've ever had, swaddling me like a blanket ever since I was a child. It was hunger that taught me to blend into the shadows. Hunger showed me how to target people and places that have so much excess that they hardly ever notice when something goes missing. It was hunger that forced my prostitute mother to try and eat her own 10-year-old daughter. The memory sends a chill down my spine, my hand lifting subconsciously to caress the incomplete part of my left ear. A small, vain part of me has always tried to hide the evidence of my mother's assault, whether by burying it under my dark hair or hiding it under my hand. But the older I become, the less I try to hide it. My incomplete ear marks me as a survivor, a fighter, someone to be avoided, which is exactly what I want. I tear myself from my thoughts, refocusing my eyes on the restaurant across the street. The sun has slipped below the horizon now, and the streets are coated in inky shadows. Anyone left on the streets will be focused on their path home, ignoring the dark shapes lingering in alleyways as they rush by. I slip out from my hiding spot, skirting along the edges of flickering light from street lamps, hurrying into the alleyway next to the restaurant. The sounds of merriment from inside are louder now, and the smells wafting from the open back door set my stomach grumbling. I peer around the edge of the door into the kitchens, blinking my eyes against the sudden light. Servants bustle in every corner, dropping empty plates off in huge sinks, hefting trays laden with all manner of delicacies over their shoulders as they push through doors into the dining room. Some scrape half-eaten leftovers into trash cans without a second thought. No one balks at the waste or hurries to save the last morsels of the meals. My fists clench at my sides, anger and envy ripping through me. I could easily fish through one of the dumpsters in the alley and find something edible to fill my stomach, but staring at the waste in the kitchen, the perfectly good fresh food that's available, emboldens me. I'm tired of eating out of dumpsters. I deserve that food. I flip open the small bag slung over my shoulder and wait for an opening in the barrage of servants. Once enough backs are turned, I see my opportunity. I dart into the kitchen, snagging a tray of meat and bread off the counter and sliding the food off the dish into my bag. I put the tray back down quietly, turning on my heel to sprint back out the door before slamming into someone. A thick hand wraps around my upper arm, catching me before I hit the ground. My eyes dart up to meet the gaze of a large, angry-looking dark elf servant. "Thief!" he yells, his voice booming through the kitchen. I don't hesitate, ripping my arm from his grasp and darting expertly around his bulky frame. I slip through the still open back door, clutching my bag to my chest as I dash into the night. It's not the first time I've been caught, and it certainly won't be the last, but it's rare for anything to come of being caught unless you're slow. Places like those uppity restaurants are always all talk and no action when it comes to thieves. None of those servants get paid enough to do more than call out for guards, and the guards don't get anything extra if they catch us. My feet pound against the hard ground as I run, my breaths coming faster as my tired body works to keep up with my demands. I can hear the guards running after me, but they'll give up after a block or two. They always do. I turn down another alley, leaping over boxes as I go, keeping my pace even. The guards, rather than stopping at the obstacles, barrel through them. A pit of dread begins to harden in my stomach. Why haven't they given up yet? I scramble around another corner, dumping trash cans over behind me to slow the guards down further. I glance over my shoulder in time to see the two dark elves chasing me skid to a stop. That's what I thought, I think smugly to myself. I turn my attention back to the alley in front of me, my heart plummeting into my toes as I come face to face with a dark elf soldier, his face twisted into a sneer. I dig my heels into the ground, skidding to a stop directly in front of him before I turn on my heel to try and run in the opposite direction. I'm stopped before I can even complete the turn, a dark hand twining tightly through my hair, forcing a yelp from my lips as I'm dragged backward. I struggle against his grip, the bag of food hitting the dirty ground of the alley. "Freaking humans," the dark elf growls, throwing me against the wall. My head ricochets off the brick, white-hot pain scorching down the back of my skull as stars dance in front of my eyes. "You'll get what's coming to you," the dark elf's voice echoes as the darkness envelops me. Voices call out from around me, dragging me back into my body. My head feels like it's been split in two, and I try to shrink away from the noise, only to realise I can't move. Panic begins to set in as I pry my eyes open, the voices around me growing louder as I blink against the light, forcing myself back into consciousness. I again try to move, lifting my gaze to the ropes tied around my wrists, spreading my arms wide between two poles. My ankles are bound together too, keeping me on my knees in the middle of the square as dark elves leer from all sides. The excitement of the crowd swells in time with the growing sense of hysteria in my gut. I thrash against my constraints, looking wildly around for any sort of way out. It's only when I look over my shoulder that I see the whip as it races towards my back. The crack of the whip meeting my flesh precedes the pain by only a second. My scream echoes off the buildings in the square, nearly drowned out by the cheering of the crowd. The whip comes down again, slinging a stripe of my blood across the cobblestone and wrenching another scream from my throat. As the whip comes down across my back again and again, my sobs become more strained, my body fighting to stay conscious in spite of the agony. Blood, snot, and tears pool on the ground beneath me as I sag between my constraints, the pain depleting me of any energy I had, my body only able to react to the latest lash before giving out under me once again. My vision begins to darken at the edges again, and I almost cry in relief. I'd do anything, absolutely anything, to escape this pain. A dark elf breaks through the crowd at the edges of the square, walking confidently toward me and my flogger. Their voices are hushed, the whip no longer cracking against my back as they talk. I watch as the dark elf hands the guard a heavy-looking bag of coins. After a second, the binds holding me up snap, sending me toppling to the ground, where I finally, blissfully, lose consciousness.
Chapter 2. Nashaer. I stare into the deep red of the wine in my glass, swirling it around the edges of the heavy chalice as the events of the day wash over me. My mother has been in a particularly difficult spell as of late, her behavior growing more and more erratic as she frets over my future. Despite holding my father's highest regards and maintaining a stellar reputation amongst the court, Mother is increasingly fixated on my position as third rather than first in line for the throne. Ire rolls in my stomach as I reflect on the many lessons that have been shoved down my throat since I was a child, reiterated in different words and voices all my life. Keep your back straight. Smile not like that like you mean it. Your father will never respect you if you can't hold a sword properly. No, not that fork, the other fork! All of these lessons boil down to two critical sentiments. Don't you want your father to love you? Don't you want to be king someday? My grip tightens around the chalice, the air leaving my lungs in a frustrated huff as I lift the wine to my lips. I never wanted to be prince, never asked to be king someday. The only reason I was even born was so that my mother could secure her position as the king's concubine. As the child of a concubine and the king, I shouldn't even be in line for the throne, but thanks to all of my mother's efforts, lessons, and plotting, here I am. Third in line and the king's favorite son, much to the chagrin of the queen and my brothers. I take another deep drink from my glass as a soft moan drags me back to my evening plans. The two women in my room grind sensually against each other, moaning into each other's mouths as their hands explore one another's bodies. The wine works its way through my system, spreading a pool of warmth through my belly and heightening my pleasure as I watch the women together. We've had a recent influx of human women in the palace, thanks to my father's growing interest in using them as a means of pleasure. My mother has hated it, whether due to a genuine dislike of humans or simply a dislike of sharing my father's attention, I can't be sure. In any case, she's expressly forbidden me from having anything to do with human females, concerned about how it may affect my image. Obviously, this hasn't stopped me. Take off her dress, I command the blonde woman atop the smaller, darker-haired human woman. The blonde looks at me through her thick, fringed lashes, smiling seductively as she runs her hands lightly down the body of her partner, tracing her slight curves. As you wish, Your Royal Highness, she says, her eyes never leaving me. The thin, gauzy excuse for a dress the dark-haired woman wears slides off easily, and the blonde leans down to close her mouth around the other woman's bud, drawing a breathy sigh from her lips. The blonde stares at me as she sucks and nibbles at her partner's chest, her hand gliding down between the other woman's legs, drawing long strokes through her as their breaths come faster. I found that most human women are eager to please whomever can offer them food or any other basic comfort, and are much more resilient in the bedroom than they look. They have no expectations of their Naga partners, which makes them the perfect tool to vent my frustrations, not to mention, they become exceptionally pliant after a pinnacle or two. Sorry for the interruption. I know you were gearing up for a steamy scene, but it's way too hot for YouTube.
If we want to keep sharing our stories for free, we have to abide by YouTube's guidelines.
To get the full, unabridged audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Browse through unabridged audiobooks, countless ebooks, and bundles offered at a discount.
If the thought of me whispering all the dirty details into your ear isn't enticing enough, use discount code YouTube30 to get 30% off of all digital products.
Story after story, audiobook after audiobook, the worlds of Protheka are waiting for you.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
But unabridged, it's unforgettable.
The two women bow their heads gratefully before scurrying from the room, more preoccupied now with the notion of food than with whether or not they'd served their purpose adequately. I wait until I hear the door to my quarters shut before I lift myself off my bed, pulling my trousers back on and crossing the room to my chalice of wine. I down the rest of the glass, trying to quell the emptiness taking root in my gut yet again.
Chapter 3. Farra. I can't believe I've been sold off by the time my senses have returned to me. Dark elves waste no time. I'm being transported with a handful of other human women. I don't know where we are going, but I stay on the periphery, listening as some of the other women talk. Do you know where we are going? Asks a red-headed woman not much older than me. I heard one of the guards talking about Nagaland. I guess we're being sold there, answered a woman with dark brown skin. I've heard stories about the Naga, and none of them are good. For a long time, they were so isolationist that they were almost like a myth. But things have changed. More and more, I've heard stories about human women getting sold to the Naga, so it's at least not a complete surprise to overhear that being tossed around as a suggestion of where we might be going. I already feel sick to my stomach at the thought of it. because while there are many whispered rumours about the Naga, some of which are contradictory, there is one thing that is consistent no matter who you ask. The Naga want human women for intimacy. I've done so many things. Learned to steal, pick locks, fight all to avoid being someone's hussy. And here I am on my way to one place where that is my only option. Sure, the dark elves are all sadistic perverts of the highest order. Still, sometimes their perversions aren't just intimate, and I'd managed to avoid getting caught, so it wasn't something I had to deal with. Now I'm trapped, and there's nowhere else to go. The last leg of our journey is via carriage. I could maybe pick the lock on the cage door if I had any tools, but whoever searched me must have done a very thorough job of searching me because I don't have a single lockpick on me. We are led into a chamber where female Naga approach us, and I'm shocked to see they have legs. I heard they were snake people and assumed they'd have tails, which they do, just in addition to a pair of legs. Looking at the women, they're all beautiful, and about half of them are topless. With these women around, I'm not sure why the Naga want human women. I watch as they begin taking each of the human women, stripping them down, washing them, and then dressing them in flimsy, barely there fabrics that leave very little to the imagination. When it's my turn, I try to pull away, but the guards that brought us here are right behind me in an instant, and it's useless to fight. Having another person's hands on me is unnerving. I don't let anyone get this close. These Naga women are getting very close, but while their touches land on some very intimate places, they don't seem like they're doing it for any form of titillation. I'm just work to them. I'm not sure that's much more comforting. I don't register as a person to them. I'm a thing. When I'm done being dressed up, I'm shoved into another room with the other women. It seems like we are backstage or something. The other women seem excited by this. I can't tell if they're daft or faking it, but we've been sold off, and they're acting like this is a good thing. I check the room, looking for a possible escape route, but there are no windows, and the doors are guarded. The other human women's enthusiasm, if faked, isn't convincing the guards to relax. One by one, the women are directed out the door that leads onto the stage, and one by one, they all march out without complaint. "Your turn," says the Naga woman who's been directing the whole affair. "No thanks," I reply, crossing my arms over my chest, perhaps the only way to keep my buds from being visible. It does leave other parts of me more on display, but choices have to be made. "You're going out there." Her voice is cold and calculated. I don't think I've made her mad, more just annoyed. I apparently don't register high enough to be considered worth her anger or something. "I won't." Then I feel large, muscled hands land on my shoulders as I'm shoved out the door onto a stage with a catwalk extending out into the audience. Or at least I think it does. It's hard to see. The stage is lined with mirror-backed torches that cast harsh light up at me. I can't see more than a few steps in front of me, but I can hear the voices of men as they appraise the other women and me. I try to back out, but the guard is behind me, blocking my retreat. All I can make out of the other women as they walk around are their vague silhouettes, but it's enough for me to tell they're strutting around doing their best to show off their assets. "Get your ass out there," the guard hisses at me. "Show them what you've got." He might be able to block my retreat, but unless he possessed some power I was unaware of, he couldn't make me walk. Were he a dark elf, there would be a pretty good chance he could have the magic required to steer me like a puppet. I stand, unmoving, my arms over my chest, just glaring up towards the ceiling so I can keep my eyes open, but not be blinded by the light. The guard prods me a bit, using ever-increasing force to push me forward, but I stand my ground. I'm testing my limits here. I can't see him standing behind me, but I can almost tell from his breathing and the heat I feel coming off his body that he's pissed. He must have been told not to damage any of the women because I'm sure a Naga of his size would have no actual problems shoving me to the ground. Then another backlit silhouette approaches. I still can't make much of it out, but from the broader shoulders and tail I can make out, I think it's another Naga male. Looks like this one isn't having nearly as much fun as the others, he says to the guard. Oh, she'll get used to doing as she's told. If they think that's happening, these men have another thing coming. I'm not going to be the willing toy of some snake-skinned perverts. I know of just the man to tame her, he says when his hand clasps around my wrist. I try to pull away from him, but his grip is firm. The guard releases me, and the new guy tries to drag me with him again. I plant my feet and lean back, pushing into my feet as firmly as I can. Don't fight me, he says. I don't want to have to get violent. I don't want to damage the goods for my brother. Brother? I can't believe this guy is trying to treat me like some gift he can just bestow on another. Or the problem is that I can believe it. This is why I'd always tried so hard not to get caught. Now that I'm in the hands of the Naga, I'm property according to law and custom. That's the fate of humans on Protheka, at least in most places. I've heard the Minotaur take on human apprentices, and their little island is a place where humans can live free, or at least relatively so. But I'm not in their lands. This isn't an apprenticeship. This Naga wants to drag me off to be his brother's plaything. I lose my footing, and the Naga pulls me forward. I manage to stop, but I'm much less steady this time. His next pull flings me off stage, and I land on the lap of another Naga.
Chapter 4. Nashaer. Wild. It's the first thing I think when I see this woman forced out onto the stage. Her hair is a curly, dark mess, and though she is thin and dirty, I can see the defiance in lining her every feature. I'm curious, which is a relatively rare feeling for me, but I feign disinterest. My brothers around me whoop and shout, teasing each other and the women that come out, and their words are not lost on this woman. I want to break her, one hisses. I'd let her break me, another snickers. I try to tune them out, keeping my face neutral. My presence here is merely to appease my father, and I know better than to show any interest in these women. I'm supposed to be better than that, above the others. But then the woman is jerked too forcefully and she falls across my legs. My tail wraps around her calves reflexively, and she pushes up, her hair falling to cover her face. Valore, my least favorite of all my father's children, stands before me, howling with laughter as I glare at him. He's known for his cruelty among the women he drags to his room, human and Naga alike. It doesn't surprise me that he's so forcefully manhandled this one. What has surprised me is when he looks down at her with a vicious grin and tells me, "Take her, Nashaer, try her out." There's a challenge in his eyes that stirs up irritation in my chest, but I'm careful to keep that from my face. I don't let the others know how much of a nuisance they are to me, but I have a suspicion that Valor doesn't need my confirmation. He does it on purpose. In truth, I do want to take her. The women in the palace, while useful, are obedient and almost docile. There's no fight in them, and like much of everything else, I find them boring. She would add spice to my life, and it wouldn't be entirely wrong for me to take her. I am here after all, even if it is only to keep in my father's good graces. And I'm his favorite son, though I am not blind to how conditional that is. Still, I have an image I maintain, and I twist away from Valor's thinly veiled sneer, intending to push the woman from my lap. That is until I realize that she's shoved her hair out of her face, and her eyes catch mine. They are a dazzling green, especially against her tan skin, and all my words are caught in my throat as I stare deep into them. The rest of the room fades into the background, and I can no longer hear the words of the others. The deafening noise falls to silence on my ears, and the only thing that I still hear or see or feel is her. I don't know what to make of everything stirring inside of me, but it feels as if everything is clicking into place. Thrills shoot through me, and I start to feel excited. It feels like I have been asleep for a long while, and now I am waking back up. This girl is the key to it all, it seems. She's bringing me back to life, changing what I thought was a prison sentence. I've thought this whole time that I was destined to feel empty as I served out my position, but now that I've met her, I can only be grateful for everything that has brought me here. A memory flicks behind my eyes, and I realize now what I couldn't then. The Nagas that I've seen that are happy, fulfilled, they've always intrigued me. The one from the marketplace with the strange look in his eyes and his tender deposition has been in the back of my mind for a month now. But I finally understand what it is that made him look so alive. It's the same thing that's coursing through me right now. She's my mate. I'd say it to be impossible if I hadn't seen Naga taking human mates, but the way she steals my breath away is undeniable. Just one look, one touch, and I know with my whole body that I will never be fulfilled without her. That's why I've been empty. I want to pull her to me to take her in my arms and explore this feeling, but I'm still frozen in place. It's a good thing, too, so that none of my emotions are portrayed on my face. No one can know how much I cherish her already. I need to keep neutral, indifferent, or they will take an interest in her, too. My father has raised us all to crave his affection, vying for it in any way we can. We've had to fight for love, and in that, we've all grown to resent each other. There's no camaraderie among my siblings, and as the established favorite, I always have a target on my back. I'm a threat to their chances to take the throne, and I know that if any one of them sees an opportunity to take me down, to step on me to get ahead, they'd take it. They'd have no second thoughts about ripping out my heart and crushing my soul by taking, using, or even killing my mate. With that thought, I break through my fog, the din around me flooding back in. I don't react, hoping only a few seconds have passed, and when I feel Velour slap my shoulder, I know I'm right. I reach up, slipping my hand through her tangled tresses and gripping the back of her skull. I turn her head, and she grits her teeth as I examine her, keeping that vaguely disinterested look on my face as Velour stares at me. Moving my hand down, I pinch her chin, and a small whimper falls off her lips. My heart throbs painfully, and I hate this is how I have to treat her. I have to keep up the act, though, because I need them to think I'm taking her for fun. She's bed sport, and that's it. Well, brother, I tell him without letting go over her face, though she tries to jerk away. Since you chose her for me, I'll take her. Velour howls with laughter. Look at you, Nashaer, who knew you actually liked to have fun. I raise my eyebrows at him. You don't need to know what I do in private. My gaze slides back to the girl, and my tongue flicks out to taste her scent on the air. Only she does. Her eyes widen, and I hate the way her nose turns up in disgust. If only she knew what was really going on in my mind, that my words were all a front. I hope she'll listen to me explain later. There's a low hum as my brothers mutter and laugh to each other about me, but I ignore them, standing and tossing the girl over my shoulder. She yelps, and I try not to tighten my grip too much as I stalk out of the room. I've nearly made it out, and I'm fighting to control my heart as it tries to race in my chest. I'm excited and nervous all at once, and I can't wait to see what treasures this woman holds. I'm so lost in my thoughts that I almost don't hear it as someone shouts after me, "Wait!" I have to keep the rage in my chest, schooling my features as I turn around to see who dares to call after a prince as important as me.
Chapter 5. Farra. My cheeks burn with anger and a little embarrassment as the Naga tosses me over his shoulder. I despise being manhandled, and I squirm in his hold, letting my head hang down as I try to fight my way free. It's no use, though, and I'm considering going limp and paying attention to my surroundings instead of trying to free myself, so I know the path to the exit for later, when we both hear something that brings my captor to stop. Wait! Beneath me, the Naga stiffens, and while I know little of the Naga culture, I can see how this one is much better dressed than the others. He's probably royalty, and I pop my head up, pressing my hands against his back to see who would shout after a member of the royal family. The Naga rushing toward us, using his tail to knock things out of his path and propel him toward us faster, is smaller than the one who has taken me. His clothes are simple, and although he approaches us with a grin, his eyes are empty. It's unsettling. I'm relieved when I'm turned away as the Naga holding me swivels around to face whoever is coming after us. The male looked much more snake than human, and I have to fight back a shiver as he speaks. "Sir," he starts, his voice reverent with much more of a lisp than the others. "You must bid for her." The Naga beneath me draws up to his full height, and even I feel a little intimidated by his posture, and I can't even see him. He shifts me a little, and I cling to his shirt, pulling hard at the fabric, and his hand digs into my thigh to keep me from ripping it right over his head. "Careful," he hisses, and while it is low and sharp, there isn't malice in his words. I twist enough to see him pull a chain over his head, extending his hand out. Something swings underneath his palm, and it's not until the other Naga takes it that I realise it's a pendant. The thing is massive, and I'm curious why it had been tucked away under his shirt. There's a large jewel in the middle that the Naga stares at with widened eyes, and I'm pretty sure it's solid gold. It could feed me for a year. I'm certain of that. On the black market, I wouldn't fetch a good price for it, but it would be decent enough. Yet it's something that he just wore around his neck. He handed it off like it was nothing, his demeanour never changing. It makes rage bubble up inside of me that he can nonchalantly behave like that. I've fought my entire life just to be alive, slinking through the shadows as I search for each meal and stay on my toes to avoid being caught. I've given my soul up to feed my belly, and here is another asshole taking me to wherever he wants to do whatever he chooses to me. I feel sick. It's only made worse by the way his words cut through the air, calm and smooth. There's no hesitancy or remorse in them from just taking a poor slave off without her consent. At least there's none of that vicious excitement I'm used to either. "We're leaving." His voice carries a certain level of authority that dares anyone to challenge him. My business is done. He must be one of the princes, one of the bastard sons who act like they're better than the rest of us when they are the same, born out of lust and left to a negligent parent. The male before him only nods, barely looking where he's going as he turns away to deliver the payment to the back corner, where Naga have flocked to purchase women. As my eyes follow him, I realise that the crowd has turned to look at us. In their eyes gleam jealousy and anger, but there's no pity, no sorrow or want to help. They're just mad that he claimed me first, or that I get to sleep with him, and all their reactions make me sick. I flop back down so that I am no longer under the scrutiny of their eyes, and it seems the prince is done too. The tension seeps out of his body a little as he turns back to the exit, and I watch the way his tail flicks irritatedly as he walks. I try to focus on the path we are taking through the halls. We've made it through a series of right and left turns, and up 2 flights of stairs before I start to wonder where the hell I'm even going. Initially, I had assumed he would take me to his bedroom, but I have to wonder if the guests are really this secluded from the rest of the palace. Then again, I don't really know how far back the auction room was either, and that thought makes panic start to stir in me. I'm pretty sure that I saw a large door leading outside on the 1st floor, but now I'm not quite sure where I am. I twist in his grasp again as I try to get a better look down the halls, and his arm clamps down on my hips. He doesn't say anything though, which is almost irritating. Usually men like to taunt me. They'll tell me what they want to do to me, making promises that send trembles through my body. I'm sure that's why they do it, but it only makes me more anxious and flighty. This Naga, though, is carrying on as if the woman thrown over his shoulders is of no notice, like I'm a sack of dirty laundry. It makes my stomach clench because I'm not sure what he's going to be like when we do get to a room. He takes another right, and there are 4 doors along this corridor. He goes to one, turning the knob, and as he spins around to shut the door, I see it is a massive sitting room with a bedroom and bathroom off either side. These must be his quarters, I realise, and it only confirms that he must be a member of the royal family, not just a patron. No one outside the royal family could afford such fine luxury as is spread out through the adjoining rooms. The lock clicks in place, and that too makes me more nervous than I originally was. Most men don't care about screwing in public. They rarely lock doors because there is no modesty amongst the races of Protheka. Why would he lock it if no one would bother to disturb him anyway? The thought sends a shiver through my body as he pulls me from his shoulder, his hands gripping my waist firmly so that he can set me on my feet. He doesn't let go, though. Instead, he stays crouched before me, holding on to me as we stare into each other's eyes. His eyes are a warm gold, and this close up, I can see tinges of greens, almost like the veins that run through gemstones. They meld so well with the soft orange scales cascading down his face, and I find myself leaning in farther to stare at them. I bite down on my lip, not sure why I'm still standing here so complacently. Normally, I'd take any opportunity to break free, and it's clear he's distracted enough that I'd have a good head start if I were to run. But I'm caught up in his eyes, and to my surprise, I notice how handsome this Naga is. Some of them are so snake-like it's terrifying. This one isn't so cold with his expressions, though. There's a warmth beneath his movements, even if he tries to mask it, that separates him from others. Maybe being with him won't be so bad. He seems kind, considerate, and he hasn't been taunting me the whole way back here. Maybe his words out there were just a front to show the others he could be like them. But then those thoughts are shattered as he jerks me forward, his lips crashing down on me, and he swallows my cry of surprise as he pushes my lips open, practically devouring me.
In a world of elves, demons, and liches.
What would you choose?
Power?
Or passion?
Would you stab the monster in the back?
Or take him to bed?
The immersive fantasy audiobook bundle has it all.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com to get access.
Use code YouTube30 to get an additional 30% off.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive.
Chapter 6. Nashaer. I figured a little kiss would be nothing. It's all I wanted. I hadn't planned on doing anything more. But as soon as our lips touch, something in me breaks. It's like every nerve in my body suddenly comes to life. My senses, already acute, heighten until I can feel her pulse in her lips. I want her. My desire for her burns more intensely than it has for anyone else. The feel of her lips on mine is better than the most exquisite dish I have ever tasted. The smell of her tears through my mind, banishing most rational thoughts. I feel the heat of her body against mine, and even as she tenses, she still feels soft. I don't know why I even kissed her in the first place. It's not like I should be fraternizing with humans at all. I still don't know why I didn't find a suitable excuse for not attending this event like I have in the past. I had no interest in a human woman. I barely had an interest in battling for the hand of Naga women. I had bigger things to focus on. I knew I'd be joined one day, but I had always assumed that it would be later, when my mating ceremony would be used to advance the cause of the kingdom. I couldn't suffer distractions. But then this woman came along, and that future seems less clear. Perhaps it was fate that I met this woman. My hands wrap around her waist, and I push her towards the bed. My mind takes a complete vacation, and it's a very animal lust that suddenly drives me. I feel like if I don't bury my shafts in her, I might just die. I've never burned like this for someone before. I almost consider myself lucky for that because this is madness. All sense has fled me, and it's all just animal needs. It's instinctual drives pushing me on. I kiss her deeper, exploring her mouth with my tongue. She tastes sweeter than the finest wine, and I start to wonder what the rest of her body tastes like. I want to kiss and lick every inch of her. We fall to the bed with me on top of her. It's only when I start to taste salt that I realize something is wrong. I sit back and my eyes confirm the theory set off by the taste. She's crying. Why is she crying? It takes my brain a second to catch up and sort through everything that just transpired. She isn't feeling this the same way I do. I don't know why I assumed she would. Maybe it was just how intense the feeling is for me. Every part of me, mind, body, and soul, hums with how right it is to touch her, but she obviously doesn't want this. What does it matter? She is a human in Nagaland. It's not like she has any right to object. She was brought here to serve the Naga. This woman was brought here for me. And now, I'm free to do whatever I want to her. So, then why do my hands release her? I have no idea why I would. Until I remember that I've always been in much more control of myself than this. I had thought of myself as someone with a strong will and aptitude for self-control. But my experience here is calling that into question. "What the hell?" she asks, her voice cracking. I'm not sure if it's because she's thirsty or emotional, but her words sound thick. I sigh and run a hand over my hood. It's a good question. What the hell? What the hell is going on? What the hell am I doing? I don't even know where to begin. I don't do this. I've never done anything like this before. I start to wonder what could have happened if I hadn't realized she was crying. Though it's silly to speculate. I know what would have happened. My shafts are ready to be freed and worked their way into her. The next steps would have been stripping her out of those ridiculous clothes with their see-through fabric, barely coloring her skin. Then my brain starts working enough to see that the look in her eyes is one of sheer terror. I frighten her. What I was about to do frightens her. The thought causes my stomach to twist into knots. I turn and walk out of the room, closing the door behind me. I know I just left her standing there without explanation or apology. Still, I keep mindlessly putting one foot in front of the other. Everything inside me is at war. My desire for her doesn't mesh with my sense of self. I let my feet carry me onward until I look around a few minutes later and find that I've walked out into the gardens. It's not a bad place to be. It's relatively quiet, and it gives me time to think. Hell, I whisper out into the night air. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but I'm now certain I just found my mate. The thought both thrills and terrifies me. My blood still hums from just kissing her, but I almost did much more than that without even talking to her. And it scared her. If she really is my mate, that's not the first impression I wanted to make. Did she feel any of it? I don't know. Human senses are not anywhere near as acute as a Naga's. She might just think of me as some handsy Naga jerk. So what if she does? It's not like she can object. She's human, after all. In every way, I'm her superior. What she wants is irrelevant. I can make her do whatever I want. But the thought strikes me as wrong. I don't really want to hurt her. I know that she's not Naga, therefore she must be inferior, right? Though, if that's the case, why would she have this effect on me? My world has suddenly been turned upside down, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Every goal of mine has always been dictated by my mother. I've spent my whole life trying to become the perfect noble, and the perfect noble doesn't have a human mate. Maybe I'm just confused, I say to a shrub. That's gotta be it. I've been so busy trying to be everything my mother has asked that I haven't had time to really live my life. Maybe this woman is just the first one to really spark my interest. That must be why it was so intense. But part of me already knows that's a lie. This is too much just to be some passing fancy or something less than whom the gods want me to be with. The problem is I don't know what to do now. I'll need to go back to her. I did just sort of bolt without saying much. But I need to know that I have a handle on my impulses before I see her again. I can't just force myself on her like I had been about to. If she is my mate, that means a lifelong connection. And that's not the way I'd want to start such an important bond. I take a few deep breaths, looking around the garden without really seeing any of it. All I can see is her. The scent of the flowers does nothing to cut through the smell of her on me.
Chapter 7. Farra. Furiously, I wipe at my tears, hating that I cried in front of him and, at the same time, glad it stopped him. I don't want to look weak before him, but Naga are so different from humans and dark elves that it's hard not to feel petrified when their hard erections are pressed up against me. Gritting my teeth, I curse the world for how right I was about him. There was no way I could ever end up with anyone nice. No, those kinds of relationships don't exist on Protheka, and thinking for 1 second that I could be anything other than someone's pet and slave was foolish. My eyes are still glued to the door that he left through, and I stare at the bolt that has been unlatched. I didn't hear him pause in his walking after shut it up behind him, so I know that it must not be locked. Pushing off the bed, I take a tentative step forward. There don't appear to be any guards, and I'm not sure how far down the hall the Naga has gone. I creep closer to the door, listening intently, and when I do not hear any footsteps, I heave out a sigh of relief. I'm almost certain I am alone, which is both an incredibly foolish thing for him to do and very relieving for me. The panic surges up in my body again as I consider how he went straight for me. He was rough, demanding, and I see now that while he is not the malicious and teasing type, he is strong and wild. I won't stand a chance with him when he comes back for more. I have to get out of here, so I reach out and grab the doorknob. It twists easily under my touch just like I thought it would, and I ease the door back slowly. When no one shouts or rushes forward, I decide to peek my head out. The corridor is empty. In fact, the entire 3rd floor seems to be abandoned, and I decide to take this as my chance to run. I keep my footsteps light as I dart down the hallways, skidding to a stop at every corner. I don't want to lose caution in my haste and be captured. There's no telling what that Naga may do to me if he finds me out here. My heart pounds relentlessly when I come to the stairs, and I keep my body crouched down to be blocked by the banister as I rush down them. Thankfully, by the time I hit the 1st floor, no one has found me yet. I take the first turns with more of a guess than a recall. The noise of the venue alerts me to the path of the castle that I know, and while I don't want to go back toward that place, I do recall a large door down one of the corridors the Naga passed through. Digging deep into my memory, I try to retrace his steps, and I almost cry out in delight when I turn a corner and see 2 large double doors made of glass. Through them are massive gardens that loom tall and seem to go on forever. I could easily get lost through there. I rush forward, less aware of the noises I'm making and more focused on the distance between me and my freedom. If I had kept my wits about me, maybe I would have heard the guard approaching behind me, but unfortunately I don't realise he is there until my shirt is yanked back and my body crumples backward. I cough, choking from the neckline of my shirt that dug into my throat. It burns, and I'm sure there will be a bruise there. Twisting around, I see 2 Naga behind me. They're huge, and their bodies are very muscular. Their uniforms leave their arms exposed so I can see the thick, corded muscles rippling with every movement. I try to scramble back, but the one closest to me lashes out with his tail. It grabs at my ankle, pulling me back toward the 2 of them. The one holding me has a blank stare, but his friend is smiling devilishly. It strikes fear deep in me because I know that kind of look. It will be a long and painful night for me if I can't get away. The silent one scares me too, as I never know what is going to come from him. Considering the way he just snatches me with no regard for my pain, tells me that I won't be finding mercy at his hands either. He picks me up, and I struggle to get away from him. I'd rather escape with a few cuts and bruises than go back with them willingly. As I rip at his scales, hoping to inflict some pain of my own, his face turns dark. I know that I am only making it worse for myself as he takes a step closer, his tail rising up to wrap around my waist. My knees pinch painfully together as he encircles my entire lower half, pulling me to him. Still, I throw my hands out to keep my body from being pressed to him. He'll have to relax his tail to get what he wants from me, and if I can keep enough space between us, I may get away. That is until his friend wrenches my arms back so that I'm pinned between them. I jerk in his grasp, but there is only so much I can do. I'm much weaker than the 2 of them. "You need to learn your place," the first one hisses in my face, and I pull my lip up to snarl at him. His eyes narrow and he leans back, looking to his friend before rearing back and slapping me across the face. My head jerks with the force of it, and it takes a second for the stinging of my skin to fully hit. When it does, My eyes water, and I don't even recover before the Naga behind me holding my arms shifts to grab my hair. He jerks it back so that I'm staring up at him with our faces uncomfortably close. You heard him, girl. You were bred to do one thing, and we're going to make good use of that tonight. His clawed fingertips dig into my wrists as he pulls my head further back, and a sharp scream breaks free of my throat as I feel some strands being ripped out at the roots. It hurts, and that mixed with the burning of my cheek and the blood trickling down my wrists makes me forget to bite my tongue. Another crack alerts me to the slap I didn't feel initially, and I try to blink away the tears as the other Naga leans in closer. You just can't seem to behave, huh? What will happen if we take you away and teach you the correct way to act? There's so much anger and eagerness in his eyes that I feel like I'm going to throw up, and I whimper softly. I know that crying will only encourage these males, but it doesn't stop the tears from burning at the back of my throat. I fear I've made a terrible mistake as his tail tights around me, lifting me higher toward his face. I won't be running to freedom tonight. No, I left the only place that I may have survived in this wretched palace, and I find myself cursing Protheka for its twisted methods. Only in a hell like this would I see being ravaged by a wild male as a blessing. But at this moment, I take it.
Chapter 8. Shear. I've walked the perimeter of this garden 3 times now, and every time I've looped back toward the door, I find I'm not ready to go back in. As I come back around, I don't even lift my head to peer through the glass. My head is buzzing with too many thoughts, and I know that I'll need more time out here. I'm sure she's glad I'm leaving her up there alone. After making her cry, I doubt she wants to be in my presence. I'm just about to turn back between the neatly trimmed hedges and fountains, letting my mind be consumed by the thousands of questions that I have no answer for, when a sharp scream pierces the air. My body freezes on instinct, and my feet are moving before my brain has had a chance to process what it was. It seems that my very core can recognize my mate's screams before my mind can place it. I try to tell myself that it's not her, that I can know it's her as I hurtle toward the doors. It could be some random human bought tonight, and that wouldn't be my problem. None of those thoughts calm my racing heart, though, and I fling myself through the doors, slamming them open in time to see her being dragged around a corner. "What the hell is going on here?" I roar, dashing after the 2 Naga holding her. I recognize them as palace guards, clearly thinking that these women are theirs for the taking when they are meant for nobility. They freeze as I come into sight, but they don't drop my mate. As a result, my tail snaps forward, wrapping around the ankles of the guard behind her and jerking. It sends him crashing to the floor, and she screams as some of her hair is ripped out from her skull as he falls. It only angers me more, and I start to see red as I leap toward the other guard, my claws ripping straight through the tail that has her pinned. It unfurls, the muscles jerking as he pulls it back in. I don't give him time to recover as I lay into him, slashing at his exposed arms and face. The soldier doesn't dare raise a hand against me, only shrinking back under my abuse. I grab the woman, pressing her to me as I take her away. I glare at the guards, and they both must know that they haven't faced the entirety of my wrath yet. No one follows after us as I take her back upstairs to my room, and neither of us says anything. There are too many thoughts and emotions filling me, and I'm not sure I could form a coherent sentence if I wanted to. I can't stop wondering why she was out. I'm enraged by the way she was treated, and what would have happened if I hadn't gotten there in time. But I can't help thinking none of this would have happened if she had just stayed put. Once inside my rooms, I sit her on the edge of a chair and go to my desk where I keep some salves. There's a bruise across her throat, 2 marks on either cheek, and a deep cut down her arm that I need to tend to. She holds still as I heal her body, rubbing the ointment on her skin and zapping it with my magic to enhance the process. She doesn't even flinch as I press on them, and it makes me wonder if she can't even feel the pain or if she just refuses to show it to me. Either way, it pains my heart to see the state she is in. She is my mate, and she's been terribly treated. There should be a punishment for this, a price so high no one would think to do it again. But there's nothing I can do. It makes a deep ache tear away at my core. I feel so helpless, and I want nothing more than to protect my mate. Here, though, she is a human, a toy, and I can do nothing to stop others from treating her in such a way. I close the salve and reach back out for her hands, moving gently across her skin. This time she does pull away, and when I reach for her without thinking, she pushes me back. I know I should reprimand her for that, but as I lift my gaze to stare into her gorgeous green eyes, I see tears collecting there. They spill down her cheeks, and I worry that they will wash away the salve or infect the minor cuts on her skin. When I reach out to wipe them away, though, she pushes me and I rock back this time, more out of surprise than momentum. Her shoulders curve in as her cries grow, and soon she is sobbing hysterically, wrapping around herself. I can't take it, and I lean forward to wrap my arms around her, pulling her to me. She pounds against my chest weakly, but I continue to hold her, murmuring, "It's okay. You're okay." I suck in a deep breath, and I say these next words for the first time in my life. "I'm sorry." They make her still, and even her cries quieten down as if she is waiting, listening. I'm glad that she's soothed by my apology, so I continue on. "I'm sorry for kissing you. I should not have come at you so aggressively, and I did not intend to. It's just... I catch my words, not even sure where they were going. I know what happened. One taste of her was enough to unleash my wild side, and I couldn't help the animal in me that wanted her. I don't say that, though. Instead, I just repeat, 'I'm sorry.' Pulling back, I caress her face, careful to avoid the 2 bruises that are deepening on her cheeks. I won't do it again. Everything is going to be okay now." I'm surprised by the hatred sparking in her eyes, and I realize now that my apology did not relax her. It angered her. She had not quietened down, but stiffened up with rage. Her upper lip curls back, and she snarls softly, her words coming out like a physical blow. "I don't believe you." Her body is nearly trembling with rage, and I let go of her, leaning back to sit on the edge of the table before her. It's understandable that she feels this way. I need to think a little harder before I just do what I want. Otherwise, my mate is going to hate me forever, and I know that my life will become worse than it was before. I nod. I know it may not seem like it, but I am a prince. "I'm Nashaer," I tell her, wondering if she'll recognize the name. "Here, I have a lot of authority, and as long as you listen to my rules, I can protect you." "Listen to..." Her face screws up in anger, but I hold my hands up, begging her to stop. "They are not part of a game or me trying to use you as a slave. I am still only a prince, and I will ask you to follow the rules of the castle. It's the only way that I can keep you safe." Her eyes narrow, and I scrunch my forehead up and tilt my head. Like not wandering the halls. Do you see how that can cause a safety issue? Now her mouth pulls in, and it seems that I've only made her angrier. I sigh, trying to find a way to redirect this conversation so that I can find a way to stop making her hate me. "It will only be for a little while. I'll get you out of here soon, but in the meantime, I'll really need you to listen to me." That seems to relax her features a little, and I lean forward with my elbows on my knees, giving her a soft smile. "Now, what is your name?"
Chapter 9. Farra. I stare at Nashaer and try to make sense of it all. He's really the only Naga I've exchanged more than half a dozen words with, so I don't know if I can rely on my ability to read people. With a human, I can usually pick out the liars. That would be more than half of them. When talking with a dark elf, I can just assume they're lying all the time, and just by sheer odds, I'll end up being right. But this Naga, I have no point of reference yet. I can't even be sure he's really a prince. I don't know anything about him. For all I can tell, he could just be some bummer son of an important duke visiting the castle, though it seems unlikely a random guest would have these rooms. So I'm willing to rule that out. But when it comes to if he's serious about protecting me, that's going to require me to take a chance. I don't have a lot of options here. I'm property. Even if keeping me from harm is only out of the interest of protecting his property, that will put me in a much better position. My name is Farra, I say, pulling away from him. His eyes watch me hungrily. No, that's not hunger. That's lust. I shudder slightly at the thought of what almost happened, though it was only almost. He might be telling the truth. If he was going to take me by force, he could have done it already. Are you serious about protecting me? I ask. I swear upon my life that I would rather die than see any more harm befall you. I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. And if you let me, I'll do everything in my power to make you happy. Why would you do that? Why would I believe you? You're my mate, he says, like that explains everything. I wait for a second for him to elaborate, but he says nothing else. What does that even mean? You were put here on Protheka for me by the gods. We are meant to be together. I'd heard lines from men before, but this one was extreme, even for a guy trying to get into my pants. I'd grown up among the dark elves, and I knew of their gods, but I had no idea who the Naga gods were supposed to be. I'm not entirely convinced of the existence of the dark elves' 13 hungry maws. I have serious doubts about Naga deities. But, at least as far as I can tell, Nashaer is sincere. If so, it doesn't matter whether or not his gods exist. If he thinks I'm put here by the gods, then surely he wouldn't let any harm come to me. I can use this. What does it mean to be your mate? I ask. As I said, you are meant for me. We will be together forever. And by be together, you mean doing it? He flinches a little. I guess crude language offends his noble sensibilities. We are to be joined in body as well as spirit. And if I don't want to? He actually starts to look like he feels remorseful. I'm sorry about that. I wasn't prepared. I didn't think a human could be my mate, and when it hit me, I lost control. I promise you that I won't slip up like that again. That's right, because there's no way I'm letting you take me. And if I refuse? I won't force you to do anything you don't want to do, but this will happen eventually. It's fated. We are to be together. If you need time, I can give you that. This sounds like bullcrap. I can't be your mate. It was hard for me to believe at first, which, again, is why I lost control. I wasn't expecting it, he says through a sad smile. But deny it all you want. It doesn't make it any less true. The gods wouldn't make such a colossal mistake as to make my mate someone who I couldn't couple with. I had heard stories about Naga men having 2 penises covered in spikes. It seemed like a physical impossibility. They might have already. I don't think humans and Naga are physically compatible. I hope I can turn him away without him insisting on trying. It would go against his word at the very least. I assure you there have already been Naga and humans who have managed. Yeah, but can those women still walk with their insides torn up by spiked penises? But I promise you, he continues, I'll be patient. How do I know I can trust you? All you have is my words and my actions. I've already admitted what happened before will not happen again. I will do everything I can to protect you and try my best to make you happy. And what if I said I'd be happiest if you left me alone? His jaw drops, and he looks like I just struck him. I almost feel guilty for it, but realise he's the one with all the power right now, so I don't need to feel sorry for the prince, if he even really is a prince. Trust has never come easy for me. I can count on one hand the number of people I truly trust, and I'm not sure I'd trust even them enough to agree to something like this. But I really don't have a lot of options. I can either play along with this idiot's insane notion that I'm his mate, or I can find myself at the mercies of the guards. If he's serious about not touching me without permission, I can maybe make this work. At least I could make it work long enough for me to figure out another way to get out of here. If nothing else, it'd be relatively safe. I know I can't stay forever. Eventually this man's patience will run out. He can't actually love me. I wasn't able to find a human who loved me. Not even those who were supposed to. I rub my mangled ear. What are the chances I could actually find love among a race as strange and alien as the Naga? Well? I prompt as he continues to give me the stricken look. If leaving you alone is the best way to make you happy, then I'll do it. Get out and leave me alone for now. As you wish, he says. I'll have some servants bring you food and drink in a while. Then he turns and leaves without another word or even hesitation. When the door closes, I just stare at it, half expecting him to burst back in. But he doesn't. Was it really that easy? I walk up and open the door, staring into the empty hall. I could try walking out again, but I don't want to get caught by the soldiers again. Maybe sending him away wasn't my best plan if he really is the one who'd protect me from the other Naga. I close the door and sit on the bed, thinking. I have to wonder how long I can keep this up. If he really is going to try his best to make me happy, maybe I can use that to set myself up for a better escape plan. I need to be ready for when his patience with me runs out. At least until then, I'll delay and gather what I need to strike out on my own. He can't possibly be telling me the whole truth, can he? I can't be his mate.
Chapter 10, Nashaer. I head to the guest room adjacent to mine. I'll leave Farra alone if she wishes, but I can't go far if I'm going to protect her. It'll be easier once I've made it clear that she is mine, but until then, it's best if I remain close and can protect her if anyone else thinks to touch her. I still feel the bubbling desire in me to touch her. I held back, but it was a struggle. Getting through this might require me to relieve some of the built-up tension myself. Just before I can take my shafts out to stroke them, I hear an angry hiss outside my door. It could be someone about to barge into my former room. I open the door and see my mother about to open that door. "Wait, don't go in there," I say. She turns to me. Her eyes burn with anger as she barges into the guest room with me. "Oh, I suppose you're keeping the little hussy in there? Don't want me to see the hussy you're going to let ruin all our plans." Mother's words are full of venom, and I ball my fists at my sides as she insults Farra. I need time to figure things out, like how to reveal precisely what Farra is to me. If I get upset that she's called her a hussy, my mother's going to want to know why. And I just can't tell her. Not yet. If she thinks me having a human concubine messes up our plans to put me on the throne, then I can't imagine how she'd react if I'd said that Farra was my mate. I wanted to put her somewhere secure and out of sight. I don't want anyone else to see her. Those statements aren't technically lies. You shouldn't have to hide your shame at all. Mother, you don't understand. I couldn't refuse a gift from Prince Valor. That would have been seen as an insult. Oh, and I'm sure he knows it, Mother says. That's why he gave her to you. That little bastard has always had it out for you. Well, you can't possibly bet her. What noble-birthed Naga woman is going to want a man who stuck his shafts in human trash? Nagas of all castes have become obsessed with humans as pets, and they've taken to using human women as breeding stock. My father even has a human pet. Which I bet he's probably doing. Filthy, half-blooded abominations are the only thing that could spring forth from such a union. I won't have our bloodline tainted by such an act. Do you understand me? I know there are still Naga women who look on the practice with disgust. We can't let that make you a less eligible suitor. It's not something you need to be concerned with. Especially if Farra never wants me to touch her. The thought is like a knife in my gut. Could Farra really deny me forever? There has to be something I can do to convince her that we are meant to be together. I want to believe you, my dearest boy, but I know men are weak. Like you said, your father has a human. As a pet, I correct her. That's what he'd like you to think. And I know we've kept you waiting for the right pairing. I don't want her to tempt you from your destiny. If it's destiny, then nothing could keep me from it, right? I say, more thinking about how Farra and I will have to be together eventually. I won't leave anything to chance. I could arrange for her to fall victim to an accident. No! I shout. What? Are you enamored of her? Are you like those others? Tell me you're not one of them, she says, her eyes boring into my soul. You don't need to worry about me, Mother. Telling my mother what she wants to hear without actually lying to her is a skill I've had to develop over the years if I ever plan to survive her machinations. If she were to die so soon after Valor gave her to me, it would be just as much of an insult as if I refused her. Mother wraps her arms around me, crying. I hug her back, running my hand over her back, trying to calm her down. She's always been volatile, her moods ever-changing and almost always going between the extremes. I've learned to ride the emotional waves as best I can. Don't worry, Mother. I can handle this. I'll play along with the game. Appear interested enough to make it seem like I've fallen for the trap. But don't worry. I was stretching the truth to its limits at this point. I wanted to do all the things my mother worried about, and more with Farra. You don't understand, Nashaer. I've given up so much to put you in the right position. I can't fail now. You are going to be king. It doesn't matter that you're third in line. I'll make sure you sit on the throne. I always worry about what lengths my mother will go to just to see me crowned as king. She openly suggested killing Farra, and while she's never said it out loud before, I'm sure she's at the very least contemplated having my brothers murdered. I'm half surprised they haven't fallen prey to one of her schemes already. I can't tell if that's because she hasn't tried to kill them yet or just hasn't succeeded but managed not to get caught. I know that if I give my mother half a chance, she'll find some method to remove Farra from the equation. She won't let anything get in the way of what she has planned. I'll need to think on my feet to get my mate out of my mother's reach before she loses her patience and does something drastic. I'd like to be able to just tell my mother to stop, but she's never been the most stable person. After having lived through it my entire life, I'm sure how that conversation would end. Saying that she doesn't need to get rid of Farra would convince her that Farra has poisoned me against her, and then she'd try doubly hard to kill her. I think back to the suspicious disappearance of Dasta, a servant who tended to me when I was a boy. Mother thought I was getting too close to another woman, and then Dasta was reassigned, and I never saw her again. Or at least my mother said she was reassigned. So instead I stall for time so I can think of a plan. We can't make any moves too quickly. Let's let Valor think he's bested me for a while. He'll get overconfident, and then we will have a chance to weaken his position. Father already favors me. If it looks like Valor is trying to undermine me, then perhaps my father might step in and take care of him for us. I'm positive that my father has no intentions of doing any such thing. While it's true I'm favored, that favoritism doesn't extend to actually clearing the way for me to succeed him. I feel exhausted by these games. I've never been particularly enthusiastic about my mother's ambitions, but especially now it feels pointless. If my mate is human, what does that do to any chance I have to sit on the throne? My people would never accept a human as their queen. I'm sure if I were able to express these concerns, my mother, if she didn't murder Farra, would suggest keeping her as a mistress. But that feels hollow to me. I don't know where to turn to figure this out. But I know it's not my mother. Her involvement in any of this would only make the situation more complicated. Chapter 11, Nashaer. I'm careful to keep my face neutral all through breakfast. Inside, my mind is a bit of whirlwind, replaying the night before until I nearly forget myself. Then I hear the scrape of chairs, and I'm brought back to breakfast with my brothers teasing each other about their nights. Valor has been surprisingly quiet about Farra, and I do nothing to provoke him this morning for it. At the head of the table, my father is standing, and I force my mind to quiet. I'll be taking my leave, sons. Don't forget your responsibilities today. His eyes narrow in on two of my brothers at the end of the table who are notorious for skipping out on their duties in favor of the human females in the palace. Silence claims the room as his gaze sweeps over us individually, and no one dares to make a sound until my father has disappeared from view. The noise comes rushing back in as angry shouts erupt in reaction to the thinly veiled threat in our father's instructions. I don't bother to pay attention to any of them. Instead, I climb to my feet, dashing after my father. Thankfully, no one seems to notice. "Father!" I call out, keeping my voice calm and slowing to a natural place as I come up behind him. His gaze rakes over me, and I'm surprised to see the slightest smile touch his features. Well, not a smile, but he does stop frowning a little. "Nashaer," he says, turning to face me. His tail swipes across the floor impatiently, and when I don't immediately respond, he snaps out, "What is it?" I don't recoil in his presence like most of my siblings. Instead, I answer as calmly and politely as I can. "I would like to ask permission to leave the palace, sir. I need to go to my territory for a month or two to stabilize my people against the coming winter." It is an excuse, but a really good one. He knows how harsh the winters get this far into Nagaland, and moving up close to Liiandor near my private territory, it is a wonder how anyone survives there. My father scrunches his forehead. "You find this necessary?" "It is part of my duties, father." I need to stroke his ego because he isn't always a reasonable man. Based on the gleam in his eyes, he isn't feeling like one this morning. "I find it pertinent to tend to my responsibilities in all aspects of my position, not just here in the palace." That makes him actually grin. He claps me on the shoulder, and though I feel the urge to flinch, I keep still. Thankfully, he only chuckles slightly, and it's not a sudden twist of anger. "This is why you are my favorite boy. You're much wiser than your brothers, always thinking ahead." I offer him a soft smile, though it is fake. He wouldn't know. He's never seen me genuinely look at him with amusement. "Thank you, father." "Take your leave, Nashaer. We will see you upon your return." He takes a step back, and I incline my head to him as I walk past toward my rooms. That's the warmest goodbye my father would offer someone. There would be no tearful words or even a hug extended from him. No, even as he outwardly shows his favoritism for me by letting me leave so suddenly with no guards, I'm not naive enough to think it's out of love. His love is shallow, easily won and swayed, and I know that I will never be the most important thing to him. It is the way of my father. He cares more about his own interests than his children, and if the two don't align, he'll leave us at the curb to pursue what really matters to him. At that moment, that is. I've grown not to care, and the conversation has been wiped from my mind by the time I reach the 3rd floor. Instead, my focus is back where it belongs, on Farra. Pushing open the door to my rooms, I expect to see her still in the bed. She was still sleeping when I checked on her before breakfast, and I was careful not to wake her. Now, though, she is up. Her body is turned toward the window, and from here I can see how she stares out of it with a longing gaze. My eyes sweep the rest of the room, and against the back wall, I spot the trays of food I had prepared for her. They're all empty. I take a step into the room, but she doesn't turn around. I realize with a start that her hearing must not be as acute as mine. Instead, I call out to her softly, "Farra!" She whips around, her eyebrows pulled together, and her eyes search me. Her mouth pulls down into a deep frown. I can see a dozen questions written plainly across her face. "Why are you doing this?" is the first one she asks me. I let a soft smile spread across my face, not feeling the need to wear my mask around her. With my guard down, my eyes travel down her body, and I suck in the feeling of my desire and love for her. Her voice snaps me out of it. "Why are you doing this?" This time it's less guarded and more timid. I shake my head softly. "I already told you." "But..." She takes one step forward, but I hold a hand out to her. "We're leaving soon, and there's much to do with so little time." Her jaw drops open and she blinks quickly. "Where are we going?" I rub at the back of my neck, not certain how much I should say in case my mother is lurking. I'm taking you out of the palace, I finally respond, keeping my voice low and taking one step closer to Farra. Out of the palace, she echoes, staring at me with a mix of wonderment and suspicion. I nod. Yes, I'm taking you somewhere you will have more freedom, and I hope over time you'll see you can trust me. There, we won't have to have all these rules between us. She eyes me and I don't blame her. I know that it must be hard to trust a prince in this kingdom, a son of a ruthless king that bought her. But in my territory, she'll come to know me. Before Farra came into my life, I was in a fog. I was hopeless, without direction. But with her, everything has become clear. I have a new goal, a new purpose, and I can't ignore it. I will put her above everything else. I move as fast as I can, helping her pack her meager belongings and call a servant up to my room. Prince Nashaer, the servant greets me with a tip of her head. How may I be of service? There's a glint in her eye as she says it, and I realize that I must have had her in my bedchambers at some point. I only shake my head. I need you to take these bags to the stables and ready a carriage. Her lips purse a little, but that's the only disappointment I can detect. Other than that, she inclines her head and murmurs, Yes, sir. I let the servant leave before collecting a few of my essentials. My house in my territory is well stocked with all of my clothes and personal items, so my travel bag is particularly light. Once I've checked over the room again to ensure that I haven't forgotten anything, I take Farra's hand and pull her after me. I move as fast as possible, and when she starts to stumble on the stairs, I wrap my tail around her ankles and hold her up. I'm sorry, I mutter as I let go of her hand. It's faster. I don't tell her that I'm in a hurry, and thankfully she remains quiet. By the time we make it to the stables, our carriage is ready and we both climb up to the front seats. I nod to the servants as a dismissal before taking the reins and guiding the Ho Queens through the gates. I only manage to breathe once the castle leaves my view. Only then can I relax knowing that my mom is unaware of my departure.
If someone had told me a month ago that I would be running for my life instead of sitting in the stuffy classroom of the bordello, preparing to be sold off to Liiandor, I would have laughed.
The forest is not your safe space, little one.
But there's no avoiding my fate.
It's you. You're the one.
I've spent my entire life training to be the perfect bride for the top-bidding dark elf. So much can change in so little time.
You understand why you're being punished, right, child?
Your blood. It sings to me.
Please, let me out of here.
You need to learn your place.
But what are you? Where are you taking me?
Run!
I'm a bringer of death.
No, you're not dying. I won't let you.
You won't be able to get out.
Let me go, please.
Sadie, I will make you mine.
Chapter 12. Farra. I don't know where we're going, but I don't care. For the first time in my life, I feel excitement fluttering in my stomach as the carriage races down the paths, moving north through Nagaland. The air is chilly, only growing colder as the sun dips down on the horizon. But it does nothing to dampen my mood. I soak in the sights around me, filled to the brim with amazement as the castle falls away behind us. Never has someone made me a promise and actually upheld it. I'm amazed. You should rest, Nashaer murmurs, and I turn to find his golden eyes watching me. A slight smile pulls at his lips, and for a second too long, I find myself staring at his mouth. Something in my chest flutters, and I tamp it down as he says, "We have a few hours ahead of us." "Where are we going?" I dare to ask. "My territory." My eyebrows shoot up in surprise. "Your territory?" I breathe, nearly forgetting that he's a prince. "Yes, I was given a prosperous area in North Nagaland when I became of age. We will take a few months there to steady my people for the coming winter. It will give you the freedom I couldn't have in the castle. My heart soars, and despite what he said, I can't rest. My body is pumped full of adrenaline, and I'm too fascinated as I watch the world pass us. For the first time, I am travelling to better things. I haven't been stolen, beaten, and sold. No, Nashaer is bringing me to my own kind of freedom, and I don't know how I could possibly rest with that knowledge. It's nearly midnight when we arrive, and he guides the Hawkins up before the massive house. It looks like it's large enough for 3 families, but Nashaer only offers me a grin, explaining, "I'm the only one that stays here," as he helps me down from the carriage. The building is massive, and he glides through it like it's nothing. I fall after him, gaping at the artifacts along the walls as we go deeper into his home. It's not like the palace, with ornate decorations that seem to mean little. The objects on his shelves and hanging on the walls seem to be unrelated and carefully picked. "Here we are," he says with a flourish of his hands as he pauses in front of a door. "This is your room." I can't hide the shock in my voice as I gasp. "My room!" Nashaer's eyes glint, and he takes a step closer to me. "Farra, this is your home now." I forget to respond. Instead, I stand there gaping at him, unable to process what he's saying. I can't believe he's giving me my own room, saying this place is my home like I'm not a servant with dozens of rules. My heart lips as we stare at each other, and I feel like melting into the ground with relief. Nashaer is upholding his promises, and even though it is a shock to me, I find myself more thrilled than guarded around him. I also start to wonder why he's doing this. Why would he promise these things to me? Did he come here for his people or for me? "I'll give you the tour tomorrow." His voice is soft, even as it cuts sharply through my thoughts. It's late now, and we should sleep. It dawns on me then that our rooms must be connected or something. I still have to earn my place at his side, just not in the traditional servant sense. He's probably only brought me along for easy access to sex, and I shouldn't have let myself daydream that he was giving me my own space and privacy. These thoughts race through my head, and soon my lips put together a question before I fully think it through. "Where are you going to sleep?" Immediately my cheeks flush, especially as his eyes brighten with amusement. He points down toward the end of the hall, and I spot another door. "The room beside yours," he answers. I let my gaze drop from his, turning bright red under his gaze. I'm embarrassed, and I can't believe that I asked that. Trying to escape the tension in the air, I stumble a little closer toward the door, reaching out for the doorknob without looking up. "Good night," I mumble, hoping he'll take that as his cue to leave. To my surprise, he doesn't. Nashaer only steps closer, his tail curling around us both and lightly brushing against the back of my ankles. I slowly look up until my eyes meet his again, and they've turned soft. I wonder if he expected me to demand he leave like last night. I have to admit I am being much more polite tonight, which I'm sure surprises him. He seems to appreciate my cooperation, though, if his gaze is any indicator. He leans closer, and as I lift my head up all the way, I realise that there are merely a few inches between our faces. I should be stumbling back from him, pulling out of his grasp, but I find myself rooted in place. The air between us is charged, and no matter how many alarms go off in my head, I can't make myself move. I don't know what's come over me, but as I watch Nashaer move in what feels like slow motion, I let my eyes fall close. I expect to feel the sensation of his lips crashing against mine. I've thought about our first kiss more than I like to admit, and I wouldn't be heartbroken to receive another. Only, I feel his fingers brush along my shoulder instead. "Sorry," he murmurs, and my eyes fly open to see him holding a leaf in between his thumb and forefinger as he smiles at me. "You had this on your shoulder." I clear my throat, nodding as he stands back up. I desperately need to get out of here now. My entire body is turning a bright hue of pink. Thankfully, Nashaer's eyes scan down my body, and he remarks, "I suppose I'll leave you to rest then. Good night, Farra." As soon as he looks away from me, I claw at the door, trying to get into the room as fast as possible. He's barely made it 3 steps when I slam the door shut behind me. I press the back of my head against and stare up at the ceiling. "What the hell was that, Farra?" I mutter beneath my breath. My knees tremble under me, bucking so that I slide down to the ground. I wrap my arms around my legs, pulling them up to my chest and sighing. I can barely hear anything over the pounding in my ears, the sound of my heart rate growing deafening in the silence. It had been slamming against my ribcage since the moment we pulled up before the house and Nashaer took my hands in his. I shake my head, begging my heart to calm down. It's never been this out of control before, even when I've been beaten and stolen. Letting my head fall against my bent knees, I suck in deep lungfuls of breath. I don't know why I feel so jittery now, and I can't even admit to myself what I was doing in that hallway. I nearly let Nashaer kiss me, and the fact that being so close to him made me crumble to the floor like this doesn't make any sense. What is going on with me? Why is he affecting me like this?
Chapter 13, Nashaer. In the morning, Farra looks a little less flustered than she did last night. I could smell the way her body heated up when I brushed those leaves off her shoulder. I was tempted to see how far I could go, but I behaved myself. It was challenging, and I spent close to an hour furiously stroking myself afterward to find even a ghost of the release I sought from her. But I said I wouldn't do anything she didn't want me to. As much as her body might have been ready, her mind is still a different story. Until that changes, it'll just have to be me and my hand at night, but I'll take it as a good sign of the possibility for things to change in my favor. I want to make sure Farra has her fill for breakfast before I take her on a tour of the mansion. Naga cooks who know how to prepare foods for humans are suddenly in high demand. But what's the point of being a prince if I can't use my influence to get what I want for the person I desire? Most of the foods she eats hold no appeal for me, but I enjoy watching her eat waffles with berries and cream. I could get used to spoiling her. When she's finished, I take her through my home, starting in the foyer and working our way out. Don't worry if you get lost at first. I know a few visitors have gotten turned around in here. Is that a veiled attempt to brag about the size of your house? She asks with a smirk. No, just a fact, I say as the corners of my mouth turn up. I don't feel the need to brag about size. Farra's skin flushes. I don't know if she expected me to play this game with her or for me to be shocked. I don't know if it's just her using innuendo to test the waters for what I'll allow. But I'm willing to see where this goes. It's nice to see her relax a bit around me. When we come to my trophy room, I say, "Here's where I would take you to hear me brag." Opening the double doors, I usher her inside the room full of shelves and pedestals. I've kept trophies from every battle I've been in, or hunt I've been on. I also pick up artifacts during my travels, I explain. What about the battles you don't win, or a hunt where you aren't successful? Farra asks. What? I quirk an eyebrow at her. You can't tell me that you've won every battle you've been in, and you always bring something back from a hunt, she says, crossing her arms over her chest and giving me an incredulous look. Why not? Because it can't possibly be true. I smile down at her. You're kidding? No, I'm not. I've won every battle I've been in, and I always catch my prey eventually. I'm persistent, and I'm good at what I do. So, you're just untouchable or something? She's looking more and more like she thinks I'm lying. I never said that. I've been hurt in battle. Plenty of times. There were a few times when I was close to dying. But I've never been defeated. She looks around the room, tapping her chin with her forefinger and muttering something to herself. I'm sorry. What was that? I was just trying to see if I could figure out what your toughest battle was. Oh, that would be... She holds up her hand to stop me. I want to see if I can figure it out. I'm a little shocked she had the temerity to try to silence a noble, but I take it as a good sign she feels more comfortable around me than she had at first. I feel surprisingly okay with it, but I do worry if she gets too familiar with me. Something like that could happen in front of others. The more time I spend with her, the more she sinks deeply into my heart, but I still don't know how I can introduce her to other Naga. I'm not the first Naga to openly embrace a human mate, but those who have are still a rarity. Some people still think of humans as nothing more than animals and act accordingly to people who take human lovers. But do I care what other Naga think of me? As I watch Farra move about the room, I try to contemplate how I would react to others thinking of me that way, as some kind of sexual deviant. I find that, for the most part, I don't think I'd care, but when it comes to how my mother would react, that's a different story. I'm going to have to deal with my mother eventually, but that's a battle for another day. Oh, this one, Farra says, pointing to the skull of an orc chieftain I have on a shelf on the wall, furthest from the entrance. Correct. How'd you guess? He looks like he'd have been a bruiser in life, and you set it directly on a straight path from the entrance. You can't open the door without seeing it. I'm taken aback by the astute observation, especially since I hadn't realized that was why I placed it there until she said it. After telling her about some of the battles and hunts I'd been on, we continued the tour until we get to the music room, lined with musical instruments from various civilizations. Farra wanders around, looking at them, her fingers hovering over the surface of them without actually touching them. Some of these are really beautiful. There are even a few that sound beautiful, I say, picking up a stringed instrument and plucking out the first few bars of a song, an old Naga opera. One of my favorites. Farra just looks at me, stunned. You can actually play it? She sounds like she's almost shocked. I can actually play quite a few instruments. When I've mastered one, I move on to another. In between your epic battles and glorious hunts? Yes, I like to keep myself busy. Could you? Farra's voice trails off. I stare at her for a moment, giving her time to complete her thought. But after a moment, she seems like she's stuck or something. Could I what? I ask. Oh, never mind, it was a stupid idea, she says. I want to hear what's on your mind. At my words, her face goes sour until I add, please. I don't want you to feel like you have to hold anything back from me. She takes a deep breath. I was wondering if you could teach me how to play. That would mean you'd have to stick around for a while. We'd have to spend a lot of time together. She looks at the floor. That's not a no, I add quickly. I just wanted to be sure you knew. Yeah, I understand. The corners of her mouth turn up, and I can't suppress my own smile. It's not her professing an undying love for me, but it's a nice start. I think showing her my corner of the world helped a lot. I just hope I can keep things moving. When I finish showing her the house, I decide to try for something romantic. Would you like to have dinner with me by the lake behind the house? I ask.
Chapter 14. Farra. I smile at Nashaer, basking in the gentle, hopeful gleam in his eyes as I nod. Dinner sounds nice. An answering smile spreads across his face at my response, his honey eyes catching the sunlight as he nods in approval. I can't help the sudden swell of emotion I feel rising in my chest. His obvious excitement to spend time with me and the tenderness he's shown me in our every interaction is slowly chipping away at the doubts I've been harbouring. I'm not sure I'm Nashaer's mate, but a small part of me is beginning to hope that I am. Nashaer leads me back to my room, departing with promises to return in an hour or two to escort me to dinner. I piddle around the beautiful quarters, not quite sure what to do with myself while I wait, feeling silly for flitting around aimlessly. It occurs to me that I haven't been without Nashaer, except to sleep since the night I sent him away. That evening feels like years ago. So much has changed in such little time. Had I told myself then that I'd be counting down the moments until I saw him again, I probably would have laughed in my own face, insisting that I'd been brainwashed or hit over the head. I shake my head as I look out the bedroom window into the gardens below. There's absolutely a loud old part of me that's sure this is all an elaborate ruse, shouting that Nashaer and the Naga can't truly be trustworthy, but it's difficult to dismiss the past few days. Nashaer has never been anything but kind to me. He's allowed me a type of physical and emotional autonomy I've never experienced, even with other humans. He hasn't tried to force himself on me, or force me to do, say, or be anything I'm not. And besides, if he wanted something of me, he could simply take it. I'm no better than property, and he's a prince. Nobody would oppose him on my behalf, no matter what he chose to do, and yet he's chosen, again and again, to be kind. I mull all of this over as I pick idly at the hem of my dress. My eyes land on the wardrobe as I look around the room, and it occurs to me that I might be expected to change before dinner. I've never owned more than a couple pieces of clothing before, much less been in situations where there's a dress code, so I decide to err on the side of caution. I gravitate towards the simpler pieces in the wardrobe and pull on a white cotton dress. The piece fits me remarkably well, hugging my chest and waist tightly before falling gently around my hips and stopping mid-calf. It's comfortable, easy to move in, and better, it makes me feel pretty. Feeling pretty has never been something I've had the luxury of considering before. If anything, it's been something I avoided, trying to look as dirty and unwelcoming as I could on the streets of Liiandor to ward off unwanted attention. Here, in Nashaer's home, is the first time I've had the means or protection to truly explore these parts of myself, parts I didn't even know were there. Another thought occurs to me as I bring my dark curls over my shoulder to frame my face. I don't just enjoy feeling pretty, I want him to think I'm pretty. A knock at the door makes me jump, interrupting my introspective loop. I rush to open it, as eager to eat as I am to see Nashaer. He looks as if he was about to say something when I open the door, but quickly shuts his mouth as his eyes rove over me. His gaze feels heavy, almost like a physical touch, as it skates across my face before dropping lower, skimming over the curve of my chest and waist in the soft white fabric. Nashaer's gaze finds my face again, locking onto my eyes. "Absolutely beautiful," he murmurs softly as he looks into my eyes. Heat coils between my legs as I stare at him, recognizing the sudden flash of lust in his eyes before he offers me his arm and a familiar, playful smile. "Are you ready to eat?" I nod, taking his arm, trying to stifle the desire still licking between my legs. I look up at Nashaer to find him still looking at me as we make our way through the halls, a smug grin spreading across my face before I can stop it. I was sure dinner with a prince warranted an outfit change, but I guess dinner with a human doesn't, I tease, nodding at the clothes he's worn all day. Nashaer grins back at me, a line creasing between his eyes. "I think that's the first time I've heard you acknowledge my title. Most people are a little more aware of the fact that they're spending time with royalty." I'm about to respond when Nashaer stops us short in front of a set of double doors, swinging them open to reveal the back lawn. The sun is setting almost perfectly over the manicured lake, all of the vibrant oranges and soft pinks of the sky captured and reflected in its smooth surface, framed by the tall, swaying grasses dotted around the lake's edge. Nashaer guides us toward the lake as I stare in awe at the scene before us, taking in the blanket stretched by the water's edge under an old, knotted tree. Flickering lanterns hang from the tree's boughs, bathing the blanket and the various platters on it in warm candlelight and the soft glow of the setting sun. Plates of multicoloured roasted vegetables, steaming meats, decadent cakes, and bowls of rare fruits are spread across the blanket. It's enough food to feed a family for weeks, all expertly prepared and painstakingly found and arranged, all for this. All for dinner with me. White-hot tears prick the corners of my eyes as I drink in the scene around me, almost believing that I'm dreaming. Nashaer's hand on the small of my back brings my eyes back to him. "Do you not like it?" he asks, concern tracing his features as he registers the tears swimming in my eyes. I laugh, unable to stop myself, wiping away any lingering bits of emotion. "Like it?" I ask incredulously. "This is the most beautiful place I've ever seen. I trail off, feeling foolish for letting him see a glimpse of such raw emotion from me. Nashaer looks at me expectantly, waiting for me to continue, his face completely absent of judgment or disgust. I decide to take a leap of faith. "I just can't believe you did this for me," I finish quietly, my eyes flitting to his. I think I see something like sadness for a brief moment, before he smiles gently at me. "I'm glad you like it," Nashaer replies, absent-mindedly brushing a curl out of my face as he looks down at me. The gesture makes my stomach flip, and I'm overwhelmed with the desire to throw myself into his arms. Before my body can override my better judgment, Nashaer turns away to sit down on the blanket, motioning for me to sit with him. The sun finishes its journey below the horizon as we eat and laugh together. The small, distrusting part of me screams and thrashes against the rest of my body and mind, shrilly reminding me of the dangers of trusting anyone, of the fact that I'm nothing more than a human plaything to Nashaer or any other Naga. It's getting easier and easier to ignore that part of me. Everything about Nashaer, about this life he's shown me, is intoxicating. Even more intoxicating. He makes me feel like I belong, not just here, but with him. Moonlight and the soft glow of the lanterns light our spot by the lake as a sudden swell of music accompanies our conversation. Nashaer laughs at my startled expression, motioning behind us to where a small group of musicians have gathered, holding various instruments I recognise from our time in his music room. I look back at him to find him studying my expression with an easy smile on his face, clearly pleased that I'm enjoying myself. My smile broadens as I look at him. Nashaer stands up suddenly, leaning down to offer me his hand. "Will you dance with me?"
Chapter 15 at Nashaer. Farra's face falls ever so slightly while she looks at my hand, and for a moment I think she'll refuse my advance. I don't know how to dance," she admits, looking between my face and my hand dubiously. I smile down at her, shrugging my shoulders. "I think I've had enough dance lessons for the both of us. You can rely on me. I'll lead you through the steps." Farra stares at my outstretched hand, looking back up at me for the briefest of moments before finally placing her hand in mine. Her simple gesture feels like a massive victory, and I hope she knows that she can rely on me for much more than just being a good dance partner. I help her to her feet, trying to keep my glee from being too evident on my face. The musicians behind us start up a sweeping melody, the soft, soulful music echoing across the lake as I look down at Farra, placing her hand on my shoulder before sliding mine to her waist and lifting her other hand. Farra's eyes widen slightly as I pull her closer to my chest, a faint pink creeping into her cheeks. Her small reactions to our proximity are enough to drive me insane. I'm caught between laughing at the effect I'm having on her and taking her right there on the blanket. Instead, I clear my throat, offering her another smile. "Just move where I guide you," I say softly, as I begin to walk us through a simple waltz. She hesitates at first, faltering between steps, but as the music picks up, so does her confidence. Farra leans into me as our dance continues, the heat rolling off her small body as she presses into me. "For someone who doesn't know how to dance, you're not half bad," I say above her head. I feel Farra smile against my chest as we continue through the steps of the dance. "Considering I'm just mirroring your steps, I'd constitute that as another thinly veiled attempt at bragging," she replies, her tone playful. A low laugh rumbles through my chest as we continue to dance, the music swelling around us. I guide Farra away from my body, twirling her out before twirling her back into me. She handles the move with surprising grace, coming back to rest with a grin on her face. Seeing genuine joy settle in her delicate features and the sparkle in her deep green eyes when she looks at the musician stirs something deep within me that I've never felt before. If it means seeing her this relaxed, comfortable, and genuinely happy, I'd spend every evening like this with her for the rest of my life. Farra's dark curls bounce as I quicken our pace, the smile on her face breaking into full-out laughter as her head tips back, the lantern light catching on her rosy cheeks. I grin in response, moving even faster, forcing her to try and keep up with me. If I didn't know any better, I'd think you were trying to trip me. She giggles as I twirl her again, the musicians picking things up to keep up with our pace. I paste a faux-wounded expression on my face at her accusation. A gentleman would do no such thing, I respond theatrically, peeling another round of giggles from her as our surroundings blur while we spin. Good thing I didn't accuse a gentleman then, Farra quips back, her eyebrow raised, a suggestive smirk on her face. She had no idea how ungentlemanly I wanted to behave right now. I halt us suddenly, dipping her so low to the ground that the ends of her hair brush the grass. Farra gasps at the sudden break in our pace, her eyes flying to mine while our faces rest inches apart. Indeed, you did not, I whisper, my eyes locked intently on hers. Farra's gaze drops to my lips, sending a bolt of heat through me. If she keeps looking at me like that, I won't be able to stop myself from kissing her. Farra looks towards the lake suddenly, her brows pulling together in confusion as she squints at the waterline. What was that? She asks, the moment all but broken. I stifle a sigh as I raise my eyes towards where she's looking and spot the twinkling lights blinking and floating along the water's edge. I lift Farra back to standing and follow her as she drifts toward the lights, explaining as we go. The lake is enchanted. It has been ever since it's been in the king's possession. It's one of my favorite parts of a territory that was supposed to be a lesson. When she looks to me, I continue. These grounds, the people, and the nearby village were all meant to help teach me what it means to be a leader, to run an estate of my own. I was very young the first time I saw the lights, maybe 5 or 6 years old. None of the staff here really has any idea what they are. Some say they're fallen stars. Others claim they're the souls of magical beings long lost to this planet, but nobody really seems to know, I say, although I'm not entirely sure Farra is listening. We walk along the bank of the lake, watching as the small motes of light float around us, dancing this way and that as if they had minds of their own. Farra's eyes are wide in wonder as she stares at them, lifting her hand gently to bat at them as they float by and giggling as they move to avoid her. I can't help but smile as I watch her. I was worried when I brought her here that she'd hate being so secluded from the city, that she'd be miserable with only me to keep her company, and grow to resent me even more than she had at our first meeting. Instead, being here at my estate has softened Farra in ways I didn't expect. I've always admired her roughness, the sharp edges and points she wears like armor, but getting to experience this sweet, playful side of her has only deepened my feelings for her. I'm falling in love with her, and absolutely powerless to stop it. Farra turns back to look at me, laughing as she plays with the dancing lights. She reaches her arms out, cupping her hands to try and catch one of the lights floating by, when her foot slips. She gasps as she loses her balance, falling backward into the lake. I throw my arm out, catching around her waist to try and stop her fall, but I'm too off balance. Instead, we both topple directly into the lake, water splashing up around us, the lights darting to avoid the sudden commotion. As soon as my feet are under me, I stand, terrified that Farra may be hurt or upset by the fall. I pull her to her feet, examining her worriedly as we stand in the waist-deep water, before Farra begins to laugh. I stare at her for a moment, unsure of how to respond, before guffawing incredulously. My reaction only seems to further tickle Farra, her laughter turning to near shrieks as she clutches her sides, her face turning pink. Before long, we're both nearly doubled over in hysterics, still standing in the middle of the lake as light motes dance around us. We stagger out of the lake, collapsing on the bank as we catch our breath. I turn my head to look at Farra, the smile still lingering on her lips, and her cheeks rosy from all of the excitement. Her white dress is nearly sheer because of our impromptu dip in the lake, the wet fabric clinging to her every curve, setting me straining against my pants as I take in the way the moonlight glints off of her. I roll onto my stomach, not wanting her to feel pressured or uncomfortable due to my obvious excitement, but she doesn't seem to notice. I rest my head on my hand as I admire her, while she turns towards me. "I'm sorry," Farra says quietly, her smile fading while she looks at me. "I'm sorry for the way I've treated you. You've been nothing but kind to me, and I was awful." I'm already shaking my head, opening my mouth to stop her, but she pushes forward. "Thank you, Nashaer." Well, that's certainly one way to keep me from interrupting, I think to myself, trying to rein in my shock at her sudden statement while she looks at me. "Thank you for everything you've done for me, for saving me. Thank you for letting me stay here with you."
There isn't much left of the world after the orcs came.
Savage. Brutal. Merciless.
If you're a woman, you're property. Even to other humans.
What happens when an orc stakes his claim on a human woman? Who would dare to stop him?
Me. Chapter 16. Farra. Nashaer stares at me for a second too long, and my heart starts to race. I wonder if I went too far. Maybe I should take it back, keep my walls up between us. I know it's the only way that I can guarantee I will never be hurt. But is that how I want to live? No. I now know how it feels to come truly to life. Not just survive despite the odds, but to have freedom, food, and most of all, someone to care for me. I can't keep myself withdrawn when I can see how open and kind Nashaer is. Instead of taking my words back, I press on, trying to show him that not only am I truly sorry for how I acted, but also that I want to keep moving forward. "I should have never acted that way toward you," I tell him, and his golden eyes seem to glow in the dim light. "It's just not in my nature to trust." He nods, sliding closer to me. Everything about Nashaer is open, his eyes, his lips, and, I hope, his heart. He reaches out for me, and I don't shy away as his rough palm scrapes against my skin. In fact, I lean into it. Sucking in a shuddering breath, I continue. He deserves to hear this after all he's done for me, and I know, deep, deep down, I know, it will feel good to get this off my chest. My mother was a prostitute, I force out. Most women are, I know, but she was well known on the streets for her willingness to do anything. She always said that you can put a price on any desire. I can feel the knot forming in my throat, my body begging me to stop, but this time I refuse to let my voice fall silent. She could barely keep us afloat. We were starving, and I'm sure we would have been homeless if anyone cared enough about our fallen-in shack to claim it. I don't even realise that I'm brushing against the shell of my left ear until I see Nashaer's gaze dart there. I don't stop, though. It's something I do out of habit, and it's hard to resist when I'm talking about the injury there. "I'm sure you've noticed it," I mutter. "My ear." His eyes flick between my gaze and my hand. "I have." His voice is low and husky. "She did that." Tears pinprick at the back of my eyes. "She said she had starved long enough. She gave me tea that put me into a deep sleep, and I don't know what she planned to do." A shiver racks my body. I can assume, though. "She wasn't..." His eyes grow wide as nod. When I opened my eyes, the pain waking me, She was holding a blunt knife, and a piece of my ear was dangling from her mouth. Bile teases the back of my throat. I don't know if she was going to eat me alive right there or take pieces over time, but I didn't stay around to find out. She let you go? I shrug, dropping my eyes to escape the intensity of his gaze. It was more like she didn't come after me. I had to fight my way out of the house a little bit, but once I turned the corner at the end of the alley, she just gave up. I wasn't worth it to her. My eyes burn with unshed tears, and I'm certain that they will fall soon. I've never been worth it to anyone. On the streets of Liiandor, I was as good as orphaned. I was a rat, a thief until I started to become of age. Then the vendors started to take interest. Nashaer shakes his head, and I can see the way his throat bobs as he swallows. His lips part, and he whispers, "No." It's so quiet that I might have imagined it. I gulp. My fingers play with my torn ear. They tried to break me, and I did everything to evade capture until one day my freedom hit its limits. I shudder as the world around me starts to fall away, dozens of memories flashing behind my eyes until it is all I can see or hear. Different faces, different skin tones, so many hands that grasped at my body until I feel like I'm suffocating. And I don't even realise that I'm full-on sobbing until Nashaer's claw-tipped finger catches one of the tears. Blinking, I'm pulled back to the present, and I see that he slid closer so that there are only inches between our faces. I feel raw after pouring all that out, and I hope that he can now see why I struggled to trust him when we first met. In truth, I've never learned to trust anyone again after my own mother betrayed me. In his eyes, I see only understanding, and relief blossoms through me as a result. "Farra," he murmurs, and I find myself leaning forward, wanting to melt into the kind invitation in his voice. "Nashaer," I answer, and the desire in my tone seems to embolden him. His hands come around my waist and pull me even closer, one finger trailing up my side until he reaches my face. He pushes a strand of hair back behind my ear, and I sigh. "I can see the pain in you, and I understand why you reacted to me the way you did." He takes my hands in his as I fiddle with my ear again. "But I also hope that you have come to learn to trust me. I want you to focus on the future, which I can assure you is much brighter than your past." His voice is a deep rasp, and my knees squeeze together at how strong it hits me. "How do you know?" I murmur, leaning in even closer to him and watching how his gaze battles between my eyes and lips. "I will be at your side." His nose brushes along mine, tracing along my skin, and I shiver with excitement. "I will not let anyone hurt you again." I might be foolish to let his words affect me so, but they sound so good. And Nashaer hasn't lied to me yet. He's held true to every promise, so I have no reason not to trust him. For once in my life, I decide to do just that. I trust him not just in his promises, but also with his hands on my body, with the knowledge of my past, and with my heart that is so battered and bruised, I can't believe he even wants it. "I will not force you," he reminds me as we continue to brush against each other, my heart rate continuing to increase. "Just say the word, and I'll stop." I don't even remember deciding to respond, but I shift forward, telling him, "I don't want you to." And with that, I trust his lips with mine too. My arms wind around his neck, pulling him to me, and his hands catch around my waist as we tumble back onto the grass. His lips crash to mine before my body hits the soft earth, my descent lightened by the catch of his tail. I gasp as he pins me to the ground, and he takes advantage of it, his tongue swiping in to taste me. For a brief second, I expect my brain to get ahead of my body and put a stop to this, but I sink against him, submitting to him as he claims my mouth. I just hope he can't tell the other parts of my body that are crying out for his attention too. Chapter 17. Farra. We kiss all the way to his bedroom, and I can't keep my hands off him. Once we are behind closed doors, our clothes start coming off. I peel him out of his shirt and he helps me out of my dress. Standing naked in front of him, I reach for his belt. With a few fumbling starts, I manage to get his belt undone. It's awkward doing it from this angle for some reason. I haven't had a lot of practice. His two enormous barbed shafts spring free when I pull his pants down. My body is at war with itself. I do feel the burning desire to be filled, but are those really what I want to be filled with? They aren't as spiky as I would have guessed from the stories I was told, but the barbs do look intimidating. I don't know if I can do it. Maybe I just need to warm up to it. He pulls me to the bed and lays me down gently. When he moves onto the bed himself, I almost tell him to stop, but instead of resting his hips between my legs, he moves down on the bed until he's eye level with my core.
As much as Samara and I want to finish what these two characters have started, looks like this chapter is about to get too hot for YouTube to handle.
Unfortunately, we have to pause here because their guidelines won't allow us to reveal the spiciest details.
To keep bringing you these free audiobooks, we have to follow their rules.
But don't worry. You can experience the full, unabridged version over at worldsofprotheka.com, where the boundaries of passion and fantasy collide.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off any of our unabridged audiobooks set in the rich and immersive worlds of Protheka.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
With these scenes, it will be unforgettable.
Nashaer turns back to me, and then we both climb into bed for a much more chaste cuddle. Spooning into him, I feel surprisingly safe. It's a foreign enough feeling to almost make me uncomfortable. I hear his breathing get steady, and eventually he drifts off to sleep. But as tired as I feel, I suddenly can't sleep. Too many thoughts about him, and I are running through my head. I need to figure myself out, and I need to do it quickly.
Chapter 18. Nashaer. Are you ready? I call out with a soft rap on the door. I had left this morning to give Farra privacy as she dressed. Though I spent the night with her, I didn't want to commandeer all her time and space. Besides, I knew if I saw her undress, I might not have enough self-control to respect her the way I promised to. As a result, I chose to dress elsewhere and return to get her. You still haven't told me where we are going, her answer comes. You can come in. I have to suppress a smile, amused by how I've started to see Farra's personality come out as she grows more comfortable around me. That smile falls right off my face as I step inside her bedchambers, though. My mouth goes dry and I immediately turn around, freezing as Farra shouts out, "Wait!" All of my muscles are tense, and I feel wounds so tight that I might snap as I force out, "What? Where are you going?" I try to swallow so my voice won't sound so hoarse, but my tongue feels like it's coated in sand. I want to let you finish getting dressed. Well, I need help with that. Her hand touches mine, and I have to force myself not to jerk away. She pulls at me, and I slowly turn around, staring at anything but her. Where are we going so I know how to dress? I told you. Now my words sound stuck in my throat. No. You told me we were going out. That's not a lot to go off of. Just wear something you are comfortable in. We'll be walking. Farra steps closer to her bed where she has several outfits laid out. I try not to, but I can't stop my eyes as they linger on her form. She's dressed down in a tight bra and a very small pair of shorts that honestly might be underwear. She's practically naked, and it is taking everything to keep myself rooted to my spot. Her lips purse, and I want to crash mine against them. Her hands tug at her hair as she surveys her options, and I clench mine to keep from fisting the strands. Just as I feel my control starting to slip, I murmur, "I'll meet you downstairs." Thankfully, she doesn't stop me a second time. I'm still recovering from seeing her the first time that when Farra does finally join me in the main sitting area on the first floor, I almost jump her then, too, and she's actually dressed this time. I move slowly as I go to her side, and she smiles at me, though I can see the hesitation lining her features. Hopefully she can't see what I'm holding back. "I'm ready now," She bounces on her toes. So where are we going? I dare to take her hand in mine, pulling her to the front door. I thought you should have a proper tour. Now, I see the radiating enthusiasm pour through her. Around the city? I chuckle a little. I wouldn't necessarily call this a city. I continue down the pathway leading toward the market, deciding I'd rather be on foot than in a carriage today. The Northern Territory is small, but it is abundant with natural resources, so we are fairly prosperous. Farra glances at me from the corner of her eyes, and it's not lost on me how soft her gaze is. I'm not sure what I said, but I can feel my small smile tugging to grow larger under her eyes. So it's more of a leisurely walk than a tour. Her hand squeezes mine, and I realize she's teasing me. My eyes sweep to her, and the breath nearly whooshes out of me as I see her grinning. It feels so rare to see that I nearly forget to respond. I shake my head, trying to make my brain work again. Let's call it sightseeing. It's not just fields and crops out here. Her mouth pops open, but as we come around the bend leading into the town center, I see her clamp it shut again. The market is bustling this morning, and my heart leaps as I watch her take it in. As terrible as Farra's past is, I love being a part of her new experiences. I want to show her everything, teach her about the world. And I swear my heart beats just to watch her soak in these unseen sights. It doesn't look small, she murmurs as we approach the edge of the fray. I have to suppress a laugh. Just trust me, this is pretty much everyone that lives here. The crowd parts for us as people see me approach, and I smile, nodding my head in acknowledgement. The Naga greet me as we pass through, and I revel in the way that many of them just call me Nashaer. I've never been one to care about titles and proper addresses. I don't revel in my power like my father, but I'd rather use my knowledge and abilities to care for my people. When I told my father I was coming here to ready the territory for winter, I wasn't lying. No, I care about the well-being of my subjects, and as I show Farra the different stalls, asking after crop growths or businesses, it's not just for show. I genuinely want to know. I catch Farra staring at me as I take samples from the baker, moaning aloud as the sugary treats melt across my tongue. Amazing as always, Farouk. She winks at me. I know it's not playful the way it would be at the palace. She's an older Naga who just enjoys fattening up those in the territory. I always make a special treat when you're in town, Nashaer. Can I have a loaf? I beg of her, digging in my pockets, but she shakes her head. Take it. She sets it on the table between us. I don't want your money. An angel, I tell her, but as she turns to help someone else, I drop more than enough coins into the tip jar and take Farra's hand. You're different here, she whispers as I lead her down a side road, having made it through every stall in the market. Different? I look at her, my skin tingling when I find her head already tipped back to gaze up at me. How? You seem happier. I let her words soak in, nodding slowly as I guide her around the shops that are closed in favor of the market. She's right. I am happier here. At home, my smiles are forced, and I interact with those that I have to. Here, I genuinely enjoy being myself and seeing these people. That's because I am, I finally say, squeezing her hand. She doesn't answer, but I feel the way she leans into me. It feels as if I have something lodged in my throat, and I clear it, trying to keep a hold of myself. Anyway, I wheeze out, I'm being a terrible tour guide. This is our main square. I gesture around with my hand. There are fountains, gardens, and many shops, though today, everything is overrun with the market. What's your favorite part? She asks, and my heart squeezes. My home, I answer in nearly a whisper, and then catch my next words before I admit that it's because that's where she is. Down here, I continue, turning her down another street, is our arena. It's a huge attraction for the Naga, entertainment-wise. It looks empty, she notes as we approach. Oh, there are no challenges today. She turns to me as we slow to a stop. Challenges? If a Naga male wants to claim a mate, he must do so here first. This is where grudges are settled and males fight to prove they are worthy for their mates. Her jaw drops open. You fight, actually fight, for a woman to marry. I shake my head a little. It's more than that. This is mating. It's a deep connection and it can never be broken. No male would dare come near a woman who is mated, and it is a highly sacred bond. Farra's eyes drop to the ground and her cheeks tinge pink. I can't help the grin that creeps up my face as I lean in and whisper in her ear. Do you want me to fight for you, Farra? To claim you my mate?
Chapter 19. Farra. I hate the way I can feel the blood rush to my cheeks as Nashaer talks about the mating bond. It feels so intimate, knowing that's what he thinks of me. What's even more intimate is the way he leans forward, his breath brushing against my ear as he whispers to me. Do you want me to fight for you, Farra? To claim you my mate? I have to fight back a shiver at his words, and I turn away, my entire body feeling like it's on fire. His chuckle is soft beneath his breath, and I whip around to find him staring at me, head tilted and curiosity dancing in his eyes. No, I cough out, my gaze darting around. No, I don't want you to do that. I rub at my ear nervously and mutter, no one would fight you for me. I don't intend for Nashaer to hear it, but when he barks out a harsh laugh, I know he must have. Thankfully, he doesn't say anything more. He just slips his hand back into mine and tugs my arm. There's a few more things to do this way, he tells me, as we continue our easy pace down the swept streets. A couple of restaurants and bars make up a small strip. He points out across the way and I nod, following him as he turns us. There aren't many extravagant stores or museums up this way, but we do have a town hall and most of the people at the market have storefronts around the town square. I like it, I squeak out. Nashaer looks down at me, a wrinkle forming between his eyes. You like the town square? I bit down on my bottom lip. I just mean that I like how connected the town itself is. You called it small, but I think it's more cosy. The people here seem happy. I go out on a ledge, repeating myself from earlier as I whisper, You seem happy. I think getting away from the city can be good for people like me, he admits. I don't like being confined in the walls of the palace. I expect him to say more, to explain why he isn't here full time or what he does like about being a prince, but he doesn't. He just keeps his chin lifted high as he walks, gaze staring straight out as we pass the buildings. In the back of my mind, I know I should be taking in more of my surroundings. Maybe it's an old habit, but I feel like I should know my way around. I can't take my eyes off of Nashaer though, and that's why it surprises me when we stop walking. I prefer places like this, he says, turning to me, and for a second, I don't even process his words. I'm too busy staring up into his golden eyes. Then his expression changes, and the confusion there makes me snap to attention. I look around to see that we are standing at the edge of a lake, the sun glinting off the surface as it dips down in the dwindling afternoon. The water looks so inviting, and the grass tickles my ankles as I take a step toward it, making me want to kick my shoes off. The only thing that stops me from doing something I will probably regret is Nashaer's soft laughter behind me. You look like you might want to swim. My gaze sweeps back to him, and to my surprise, there's no teasing look on his face. Instead, he's lit up with amusement, and something I'm not sure I've ever seen before. Would you settle for a boat ride? My eyes follow his hand as he gestures to a small boat docked down the bank. It's cute and small, and my heart swells as I realise that he must have been leading me this way on purpose. I close the distance between us, tipping my head back to stare at him. I'd love to, I breathe. His body tenses up, his jaw clenching and his spine straightening. It's adorable the kind of effect I have on him, but it is much more endearing how he does nothing about it. I shouldn't tease him like this, but I keep expecting him to break, to act the way I've always expected. But he doesn't. Instead, Nashaer takes my hand and guides me to the boat, helping me step in and find my seat as it sways on top of the water. He climbs in after me, pushing off the bank and rowing powerfully. I watch him as he moves, and I can't ignore the way my eyes are drawn to his muscles rippling with each stroke. My mouth starts to go dry, and I rip my gaze away to focus on anything else. Nashaer is looking out across the water, and it gives me a chance to watch him openly. When no one is watching him, he's really quite handsome. He looks relaxed here, so unlike in the palace when he seemed to tense over everything. It makes me wonder why he isn't out here more. It hits me then that I have a lot to wonder about when it comes to the prince. I've bared my heart to him, but I know so little in return. I find myself wanting to know more about him, especially as I rack my brain for any information I have about him. The only thing I can come with, besides that he's a prince, is that his mother is alive. I dare to ask him, wanting him to open up to me. Are you close with your mother? His arms still as his eyes dart to me. He sits up fast, looking around. Is she here? The panic in his voice makes my stomach churn. No, I just meant before, at the palace. I saw she's... Gods, I'm stupid. I was just thinking she's alive and... It's okay. His voice rumbles, and I shut my mouth before I can embarrass myself anymore. I know I haven't been forthcoming about my past. You don't have to... He holds up a hand, and I fall silent immediately. It's almost funny how quickly we fall into our old roles. Nashaer pulls the oars into the boat, drawing himself up to his full height before speaking again. I am my mother's only son. That alone surprises me with the many children the king has. She wanted to gain my father's favour as she was only a concubine, and she thought he would come to love her if I was his favourite son. My stomach churns as he talks. I can tell he's lost in a memory by how soft it's turned, and I hate that I can pick up on the slight tremble of fear as he talks. She trained me, used me for her own personal gain. I didn't get to be a normal kid. My childhood was full of lessons from my mum and tests from my dad. His whole body goes tense, and they both leaned heavily on punishments if I didn't perform as expected. He lifts his head to look at me. I know how it feels to learn your parents won't provide you comfort, but are instead what you should fear, though my scars are less noticeable. I shudder at the implication in his tone, shaking my head as I slide closer to him. I had no idea, I murmur, reaching out for him. Nashaer takes my hands in his, and I lean into him, feeling tears prick at my eyes as I imagine what it must have been like for him. No one does, he whispers. I thought as a prince you had everything. I shake my head, bringing my face up to his. But you grew up like me, and you didn't deserve that. He goes to answer, but I don't let him. I bring my lips to his, pressing a kiss hard against him as I try to ease his pain. I don't know who needs comfort most right now, me or him, but I know that the desperate way we grasp at each other as he pulls me onto his lap only shows how much we've both needed someone to truly care for us.
Chapter 20, Nashaer. After we finally managed to separate, mostly due to the water that started to leak into the boat as we rocked it, I row us back to shore faster than I thought possible. We don't want to be out here after dark, I murmur as I help Farra out of the boat. Of course, she answers, practically dragging me back toward the house. Our pace is fast, and we fall into a thick silence as we rush home. The air around us is charged, and I'm certain she's thinking the exact same thing as I. We need to get home. Now, I have half a mind to just pick her up and carry back, but I don't think Farra would go for that. Instead, I have to settle for her painfully slow pace and keep my eyes forward. I fear what will happen if I look down at her beauty. We finally make it back to my home, and when I pull the door open, the smell of dinner hits me. I didn't realize how late it had gotten. I have no desire to eat, and I'm debating if I could talk Farra into skipping the meal when she glides right past the dining hall and heads for the stairs. I'm all too eager to chase after her, and this time, I do sweep her up in my arms. She doesn't even protest as I crush her to my chest, her hands interlocking behind my neck as I run up the stairs. We don't even make it to her bedroom before she pulls her lips to mine. Farra's skin is almost feverish as she pulls me hard against her, and her breaths are coming in harsh gasps. With impatience, I practically kick her door down, and I hear the wood splinter as I slam it back in place with a flick of my tail. I'll fix it later, but for right now, the only thing on my mind is exploring the body of this unbelievable woman in my arms. My knees hit the edge of the mattress, and I sink onto the bed with Farra still in my arms. I lean forward until her back rests against the blanket, and though it almost pains me to do it, I pull away from her slowly. As I sit back on my heels, she rockets up, pulling at her shirt and throwing it to the floor. My jaw drops open, and my brain comes to a halt. It doesn't seem to faze her, though. She reaches forward, undoing the clasps of my top, and as her hands brush against my bare skin, it jolts me back to life. My palms come down on top of hers, stilling her fingers, and I'm fighting for breath when she turns those bright green eyes on me. Her eyebrows are raised and pinched together, an expression I'm learning means she's confused, and I give her a soft smile to ease her worries. "Farra," I breathe, and the corners of her mouth pull down. "Are you sure this is what you want?" I watch the way that my words disarm her, practically melting down her defenses. She nods a little. "Yes." Her voice is breathy. "Yes, I want you." She squeezes my hands. "I want this, and I know that I stopped you before, but I want to be with you in any capacity I can." Leaning down, I kiss her lips, working her back until she's laying down. I move my lips across her skin, down her throat until her hands come up to peel the vest off my chest that's already been undone. "I love you," I murmur against her skin, my heart pounding. I know that may stop all of this, but I don't care. I want her to know that my intentions with her are true, and I will not have intercourse with a mate that can't accept my love. Her fingertips skim up my scales, and she sighs softly in my ear. "God damn it, Nashaer, I love you too." A vicious shudder courses through my body, and my need for her increases nearly tenfold. I don't even realize what I'm doing as I bring my lips back to hers, so lost in her kiss that her gasp is what alerts me to the way my claws have busted open the seams of her tiny shorts. This scene is about to get too steamy for YouTube's comfort, and as much as we'd love to keep going, their guidelines say we need to stop here.
To continue releasing these free audiobooks on this platform, we've got to play by the rules.
But the passion doesn't end here.
Visit worldsofprotheka.com to hear the full, uncut version of this fantasy romance, and every daring moment that YouTube can't handle.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off unabridged audiobooks in the worlds of Protheka.
Don't let YouTube hold you back. Immerse yourself in a world of magic, danger, and unfiltered passion.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
Listen unabridged and you'll never want to go back. Chapter 21. Farra. Nashaer has made me wonder if fairy tales are real over the last 2 weeks. He's given me everything I never dared to dream of as a street urchin. It's been a nice escape from the harsh reality of his world. In this territory, we can act like a real couple. It's not just sneaking around in each other's rooms, but the servants and even the people around the territory don't seem particularly bothered by us being together. I wonder if it has something to do with how relaxed Nashaer is here. I've said it to him before, but he seems to just come alive without the watchful gaze of his mother or the competition with his brothers. He's told me that a weight lifts off of him outside the palace. I smile as I look at his sleeping form. He looks just as relaxed in his dream state as he does when he's awake, and that's how I know he truly does not feel tense here. It makes it easier for me to breathe. I've never known what it's like to be at ease, but with Nashaer's arms wrapped around me alone in my bed, it's easy to forget that there was everything to worry about. We've been practically sharing my room, so much so that the servants come here to bring us breakfast if we sleep too late. They keep Nashaer on track with his meetings and all of his work, and while at first I was petrified whenever he wasn't by my side, now I feel comfortable moving around the house when he's busy. The servants don't wake us today. The sun cast through the window still looks early enough when Nashaer slowly blinks his eyes open and I grin automatically. He presses a kiss to the tip of my nose and murmurs, "Good morning." "It always is," I answer, kissing him fully on the lips. He's turned me into a bit of a sap too. "As much as I want to stay in bed with you all day," he tells me as he catches my hips, stopping me from straddling him. "I do have some things to tend to." I pout. "You always do." "Heavy is the head that wears the crown," he murmurs, and it almost sounds like he's reciting it. I arch an eyebrow, and he shakes his head. I must be a good leader. "Can we have breakfast at least?" Nashaer kisses my forehead. "I wish I could, my love, but I actually have to go into town today." I stiffen at that, not used to being left alone. He notices it, just like he notices everything, and he smooths a hand over my hair. "Don't worry, I won't be gone long." I nod, trying not to let my fear consume me, but by the time he climbs out of bed, my stomach is already in knots. He comes back to kiss me goodbye before he leaves, and I force myself up to dress. Just as I am about to go downstairs for a light breakfast and a morning in the library, the door flies open. I turn, expecting to see that Nashaer has already returned since there was no knock, but it is a Naga woman standing in my doorway. I pause, arching my head as I stare at her. Immediately, I see the similarities in the way she holds herself, her eyes and bone structure. Her clothes are made of fine threads, and it is plain to see that she is a dignified woman. It must be Nashaer's mother. I incline my head, uncertain of how to approach her. He hadn't told me anyone was coming to visit, but I have to hope that she is like her son in her treatment of me. "Hell—" My words are cut off with a sharp smack as the woman slaps me across the face. I stumble back, blinking from the force of it, and my fear rises up like bile in the back of my throat. Of all the days for Nashaer to leave. "You!" the woman hisses, creeping closer, and I back up until my body slams into a wall. My eyes dart around as I look for an escape, but I know there isn't one. "You are the one who has led my son astray. You've distracted him and taken him away from me. After all his hard work, he's jeopardizing his position for a common hussy." Her words are just as sharp as her hands, and I am still reeling from what she said when another slap comes my way. I consider calling out to the servants, but I know that they will be forced to obey her. She is the highest-ranking Naga here without Nashaer. He has always been groomed to be a great king. How can he stay on his path with a stain like you on his history? She shouts these questions and accusations at me, her fangs dropping out into full view, and my mind is clouded with too much at once. Shock and fear battle in my body, and all I can process is that I need Nashaer home. Now, it's clear that the gods would never bless me in that way as she rears back, and I sputter, trying to get a hold of my situation. "Nashaer is here for work," I tell her just as her palm connects. This time I taste blood from my split lip pouring into my mouth. I didn't ask him to do this. "No, but he did it to be with you. He knew I'd never allow it." I shrink back. "He'll be home soon. He can explain everything then." She snatches for me, and I instinctively sidestep her advance, which only makes her angrier. "Please, I can bring your stuff to one of the rooms and make you some tea while you wait." I'm not sure she's even hearing me as she latches onto my wrist, pulling me forward. I stumble, and it only makes her grip me by my hair as she drags me. My fingers clutch at the strands as she rips them free of their roots, and I clench my teeth to keep from crying out. It's everything I can do just to keep up, and when she throws me forward, I have a brief, misplaced rush of relief. "Take her out front," she commands, and I lift my head to see 2 of the Naga guards standing there. Punish her for what she has done. Trembles start to spread down my arms and back. I know what it means to be punished by these kinds of people. I was nearly ripped apart for wandering around the castle. I can only imagine what will happen since she thinks I am jeopardizing a prince. I want to remain strong, but the sobs tear through me as they drag me in front of the house. I don't even bother to fight them as they drop me to the ground, knowing it's no use. As they step away, leaving me sprawled in the grass, I lift my head, and to my horror, I see a whip unfurled in one of their hands. "No," I whimper, pushing up on my hands and knees. I'm halfway to standing when I hear the crack just before it lashes against my back. The pain makes my knees buckle and I drop to the ground, hot blood spilling across my skin. The lashes keep coming, the pain hitting me late, and I can feel each cut tearing open my skin. Soon there is no barrier to protect me, neither shirt nor skin, and I know the leathered strip is going to shred through my muscle. I'll be unconscious by then, though. The only reason I'm still awake now is because of how quick their work is. Maybe it was a mercy they gave me. They'd give me the lashes, appease Nashaer's mother, and I would pass out quickly. Then I hear her voice ring out, "It's not enough." Another crack tells me that the next lash is coming. My voice is gone from screaming and crying, and my throat is raw. I don't even have it in me to sob as my skin is flayed open, and I let my eyes fall closed, praying for my body to slump into unconsciousness. Just before I am swept away, though, I hear a male roar. I can't make out the words, but I am almost positive that it is Nashaer. I want to smile, but I have no control over the muscles of my face. So instead, I cling to his voice, not caring if it's a dream or a hallucination, and I let my mind fade to black. From the depths of the darkness of Protheka,
Or clawing up from the realms of fantasy.
come the most fearsome beasts you have ever seen.
These monsters are done watching from the shadows.
Now, as they step into the light, something unexpected grips them.
Something even they can't fight off.
Love,
Vampires.
demons,
Dark elves.
gods.
Minotaurs. Creatures of light and dark.
They will protect their mates.
Do whatever needs to be done.
Morally grey heroes who will burn the world to protect the women who love them.
10 audiobooks.
Fall into over 60 hours of fantasy romance.
20 ebooks.
Over 1 million words of these brutes who will protect their women.
Even if they might destroy themselves in the process.
Get the immersive Protheka Fantasy Romance Bundle.
For 80% off, right now, dive into Protheka at a once-in-a-lifetime discount.
The first bundle to offer both ebooks and audiobooks on worldsofprotheka.com. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this romantasy bundle will make it endless.
Chapter 22. Nashaer. It was hard to leave Farra at home after the past few weeks. Being without her feels like missing a limb, and that phantom feeling haunts me all morning. As a result, I rush through my duties like I never have before. All I can think about is getting back home, and as I make it back up the hill on the edge of my territory, I use my tail to propel me, my feet barely touching the ground as I push myself that fast. My heart pounds in my chest as I turn the last corner, and my home, our home, comes into view. I can't wait to see Farra again, even though it has only been a few hours. Then I hear something unmistakable that makes me go nearly flying through the air. I use my limited magic to propel me, along with my powerful tail, even though I'm sure that I must have heard wrong. When that harsh crack erupts through the air again, though, I know I couldn't have. My vision turns bright red as I reach my home, only to find my love splayed out on our yard, her back torn flesh. Hot tears fight for my attention as rage burns up my core. I don't even think as I dart out under the whip, catching it in my hand. I see the blood drip down the sliced open palm as the guard pulls the whip back, but the pain doesn't hit me. No, I wear my rage like armor, especially when the guard turns his head to look at the woman who must have given the order. My mother. A sharp scream tears free of my throat, one so violent that the guard takes a step back, and my mother's eyes widen, though it's nearly imperceptible. I've never felt such a palpable emotion as I do right now, and I know that she is not expecting anything more than a heated conversation. That's who I was before. I would give in to my mother's wishes without concern for myself. I'd taken her abuse, her demand, her everything, and carried it on my back all my life, but not this time. Not with Farra. How dare you? I snarl, not daring to step away from my mate's body. This time my mother does blink. What? This is my territory. You are not to be here without my invitation, and for you to come here and command my men when you have no place in my home. I lunge for the guard, and he leaps away from me, but not before I grasp the whip and yank it from his grasp. It is a grave mistake. Nashaer. I rear the whip back, my eyes set on her. Do not speak. For once in your life, you will listen. She seems stunned into silence, so I press on. Farra is my mate, and nothing you do is going to change that. You are to leave her. Leave us alone. Her eyes narrow, and she dares to take a step forward. I tense the whip, and she pauses, but she's arrogant enough to slip a little closer. Nashaer, you have lost your sights on what is important. No, I finally learned what actually is. Her nostrils flare, and I see the movement just before she dives, lashing at Farra. My arm moves without me thinking, and though I miss her, I can see the welt forming on her ankle where my warning hit landed. My mother falls to her knees, staring up at me like she has never seen me before. Nashaer! You aren't welcome here. I am welcome anywhere. I am your mother. My eyes dart up to the guards. You've heard me, she is not welcome here. She lunges toward Farra again, intent on killing her and taking her from me. Of that, I'm sure. I kick her in the ribs, albeit not hard, and it sends her sprawling in the opposite direction. Relentless, she snarls, up on her hands and knees again. But this time my guards intervene. They grip her by the arms, and as she thrashes, they each grab an ankle as well. Her tail flails wildly, but they manage to pin it between them so that she has no advantage against them. It almost pains me as I tell them, don't let her back into my territory. I make eye contact with her as I command. Ever. I don't bother to watch as they drag her away. I drop the whip in my hand, sinking to my knees beside Farra. My soul feels shredded just looking at her, and as I try to roll her over, panic flutters in my heart at how feverish her skin is. Lifting her up, I hold her against my chest, and my arms turn wet with her blood. I press a kiss to her sweaty skin, whispering, I've got you. As soon as I cross inside, the healer is standing there, and I nod at him, an indication to follow me as I carry her to her room. I'm careful as I transition her onto the bed, belly down, and the healer gets to work right away. I don't leave Farra's side. I stay crouched next to her bed, clutching her hand as he rubs salves on her skin and pours his magic into her. I let my own magic flow up her hand, hoping to enhance the healer's abilities, but I know what I have is no match for him. It's really just a comfort for me. In only a matter of hours, her skin is stitched back together, though pink and new. It'll be tight and painful, but it is much better than how I found her. With her torso wrapped up in bandages, the healer bows out of the room, promising to return soon. Food is sent up for the both of us, but I don't care. I only care about Farra right now, and I lay her on her pillows, tucking her into my body as I climb onto the mattress beside her. Guilt burns through me, and it's only made worse as she stirs. At first, I think she is too hot or in pain, but as she starts to mumble, I realize she's waking up. I lean back on my elbow to watch her as she slowly blinks her eyes open. Her gaze sweeps the room, landing on me last, and I offer a soft smile, though it's laced with pain. "Hey," I whisper, weaving a strand of her hair between my fingers. She blinks at me, not responding, and my heart leaps to my throat. She must hate me for not protecting her, and while I understand the sentiment, I can't stomach the thought. "Your back has been healed," I tell her, and she only nods numbly. I cup her face, my entire body burning as I whisper, "I am so sorry for what happened. I had no idea she would come here. I knew she was crazy, but she's clearly more irrational than I expected." I smooth her hair back, leaning my forehead against hers. "I can promise you that I will never let that happen again." Her eyes search my face, and my heart rate starts to pick up. I feel like I'm on trial here, and she's searching for her decision as she evaluates me. I'm seconds away from begging her not to close herself off to me again when her lips part. My words catch in my throat, my attention focused solely on whatever she's about to say. But her question catches me entirely off guard. "Are you going to become the next king?"
Chapter 23. Farra. Nashaer's lips part and press into a firm line over and over as he tries to figure out how to respond. I know it's not what he was expecting me to say as soon as I woke up, and my mouth is so dry I almost didn't get the words out. But I have to know. While I was unconscious, his mother's words haunted me. It made me question if I fully understood the position I put Nashaer in. I had known he is a prince, of course, but that can mean a lot. To be a prince, even a son of the king, did not necessarily mean that he would inherit the crown. Him bringing me here only made me more certain that he wouldn't ascend to the throne as he had his own territory to rule over. I don't know much about the monarchy though, so I could be wrong. Either way, I need to know where Nashaer stands, with his father, with all of Nagaland. Could I really be ruining his chances at something he's worked so hard for? No. He finally stammers out, but the apologetic way he gazes down at me makes me suspicious. No? I raise my eyebrows at him, and I know my look is full of disappointment. His mother might be crazy, but I doubt she lied to me. He sighs. Probably not. Now I know the truth. I bite the inside of my cheek. Nashaer's eyes are still on me, and when I meet them, I blurt out exactly what I'm thinking. A rarity for me. "Do you not trust me?" It hits him right in the chest. The breath seems to whoosh out of him, and after a few more seconds he sucks in a deep breath to replace it. "I do trust you." "Then why are you lying to me?" "Farra." He sounds almost exasperated, but I don't care. I can't stand in his way, and I can't be strung along just to be abandoned when it comes time for him to ascend. I don't know who will take the throne after my father. None of us do. But you have an idea. His fangs press against his bottom lip, not puncturing it, but they could if he pushed down harder. "Well, dash. "I want the truth," I snap. "I am my father's favourite son," he blurts out. I blink, and if it was any other kind of conversation, I would think he's cheeky. But I know that Nashaer has no pride in his father's favour. It's evident in his tone. His love is very conditional, though, and while I usually maintain that title, I may fall. But as of right now, you are the next in line for the throne. I am a contender. Nashaer. My voice portrays the warning well enough without words. "Yes," he gasps out. "It was very likely that I would inherit the throne." It feels like a huge stone is lodged in my throat as I realise he said would, not will. He knows as well as I do that he will never be king with me as his mate. My heart is being wrenched in two as I consider my options. Either I can stay by his side and cost him his position, or I can leave, knowing what it is like to be loved. I can already feel it destroying me as I consider my life without Nashaer. But I know there is no true choice. I won't destroy his life. I don't notice the tears at first until he swipes one away from my cheek. It's then that I notice the tracks coating my face. It's the hardest thing in the world to tell him, I can't ruin those chances for you. Nashaer's eyes widen, and I take advantage of his stunned reaction to roll toward the edge of the bed. I swing my legs over the side, and just as I go to stand, his arms clamp around my waist. No, he cries out, spinning me to face him. We're both sitting on the bed as he drags me against him, crushing me in a hug that I desperately don't want to resist. Farra, please. His voice is so thick that I realise he must be crying too. It only makes my tears fall faster. You can't leave me. I must. I push against his chest, though I'm glad he's stronger than me. With all my effort, I can't get away. And deep in my heart, I know that I don't want to. Nashaer buries his face in my hair, his massive frame shaking with the violent nature of his sobs. It wrenches my soul apart, but I try to keep a strong facade. Before you, he blubbers, I was lost. My life was meaningless, and I only have started to find joy again with you. It stabs me right in the heart as he says it. It's all the words I've wanted to hear, but it's come with terrible timing. If this was a different world, even a different life, maybe he could whisk me away with whispered promises and sweet words. But this is Protheka. No such fairy tale exists for someone like me. I don't have goals. He keeps going, and it's like he's trying to shred my heart. I've never had any direction of my own. Everything I've ever done was to appease others, but you are the only thing on this planet I've ever truly wanted. Nashaer pulls back, pushing the hair out of my face and trying to catch my gaze. I try to look at anything but him, but he captures my chin in between his forefinger and thumb. I know that if I truly fought him, he'd let go, but I let him tilt my head back, wishing desperately I could just give in to him. If you leave me, Farra, I will be lost. You are my everything, and I won't go back to just being restless. I'll be broken and hopeless. My life will be empty for no reason. But you'll be king? He shakes his head. It means nothing to me. I don't want to be king. I just want you. He leans his forehead against mine. I mean it. You are my everything. Nashaer! Please! He cuts me off, and his eyes are wide and pleading. Please, Farra, you can't leave me. If I have to get down on my knees and beg you, if I have to find a way to prove I'm worth it, I will. I'll do anything to keep you. My heart pounds wildly at the way he's imploring me. I've never had anyone care about me before. I was an orphan, a thief, a nobody. To hear someone beg for me is a dream come true, and that's why it's so bittersweet that I have to turn him down. But do I? He had a loveless childhood too, and he knows what it's like to go through life merely surviving, though on different terms than I. Could he be feeling the same thing I am, that this is worth risking everything else for? Because even though my back is still healing, and I know I won't forget what his mother did to me, I'm willing to face the possibility of it happening again, just to be with him. Is that what he's feeling when he says he will give the throne up for me? So many questions swirl around my mind as I think over all he said. I can tell when he's lying, and I am confident that Nashaer didn't say anything false just to win me over. No, his eyes are open and honest, and I know that he has laid himself bare for me to see. My decision is my own, an autonomy only he has rewarded me with, and that freedom makes me want to reconsider my position. The thoughts continue to buzz around my head, but there's one that sticks out to me, one that keeps echoing in my head. Can I do this? Can I fight for him?
Chapter 24. Shear. It feels like my heart is permanently lodged in my throat. It's been days since my mother's visit, and she succeeded in one way. She drove a wedge between Farra and I. After I begged and begged her not to leave me, my whole body trembling with fear and anxiety, she only said she needed time. In that moment, time sounded way better than her leaving, and I agreed immediately. I swore to her that I'd give her all the time she needed, and although I still hold true to that, it's killing me. Every morning I wake up missing Farra terribly, and I have to force myself to walk past her door without knocking. It's a feat of strength I didn't even know I possessed. I'll spend hours sitting at the table downstairs, hoping she'll join me, until one of the servants confesses that she'd asked for food to be sent up. That's where I am now, sitting at breakfast alone like the last 2 mornings. She's barely talked to me, and it feels like the silence has turned to daggers, stabbing my chest violently. My plate is still full, and I find that I can't bear to touch it. It's been like this since I found Farra flayed open. I hardly eat, don't sleep, and can barely concentrate enough to work. My days have just been silence thick with my sadness. Still, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't go back and demand answers if I could. And I don't even consider doing it now. I'll give Farra as much time as she needs. I'll give her anything. And I know that my desire to make her happy overwhelms my own needs. My soul may break without her, but I'd crawl over glass for that woman. Sir? I lift my head slowly, realizing I had been in that dreamlike state that keeps coming for me. It shrouds my mind in clouds, barring me from my reality, and when I snap to, the pain is fresh. What? I answer. My tone isn't sharp. Even to my own ears I can hear how deflated my voice sounds. The servant's mouth pulls down at the corners. Here, in my territory, I've always been a happier person. They've never been exposed to this man and his abusive mother, and the whole house has been shaken by the events over the last few days. Your mother has sent another letter. That damn woman doesn't know the meaning of leaving me the hell alone. If I lose Farra because of her... I hold out my hand, and he darts forward to place it in my waiting palm. I touch the corner, summoning all the magic I have to light the corner on fire. Naga magic is usually only good for healing, but occasionally we can manage feats such as this. He just stands there watching as I let the paper curl under the weight of the flames in my hand. He has the good sense to say something as the flames start to dance across my palms. I see more than feel the skin start to blister. Sir! The servant snatches a pair of tongs off the table and pulls the envelope off my hand, tossing it into the fireplace. He looks back at me, alarmed, but I only shrug. Pushing back from the table, I say, I'll be in my office if you need anything else. I don't bother looking back as I head off to the opposite side of the house. I immediately shut the door behind me, striding to the wet bar tucked in the corner and pouring me a few fingers of ale. With the glass in my hand, I pass by my desk, which is overrun with documents that I need to look at this point, but I couldn't be bothered. Instead, I stare out the window, letting the fog numb my mind as the booze does my body. Once I run out of my drink and feel sufficiently devoid of any emotion, I move back to the desk. I lift the papers, trying to make sense of the words on them, but it could be written in Orcish for all I retain. I'm almost relieved when there's a soft knock on the door, and when it swings open without waiting for my response, I know it must be Farra. Sure enough, she steps inside, looking as beautiful as ever. My heart slams violently in my chest as she closes the door behind her, taking a few steps into the room. Her expression is unreadable, and it nearly breaks me in two to see her walls back up. Did she make a decision? If she did, I fear that it is not in my favor from the way she keeps her distance and avoids my eyes. I'm about to hit the floor, get down on my actual hands and knees and plead with her. It's not the way I want my mate to choose to be with me, but I'd do anything for her to stay. The papers in my hand fall to the desk, and my lips part as I'm about to ask her just not to tell me her decision. I can't bear it. I know I can't take it. I can't give up her love and friendship, the only thing that's ever made me feel alive. Without lifting her green eyes, she slips around the desk and buries her face into my chest, her arms winding around my waist. Tears collect in my eyes as hope blooms in my chest, and I run a hand down her hair. Still, my fingers tremble, and that tremor starts to spread to my whole body as my fear and hope collide. It's pure torture to wait as the silence stretches out between us, and I finally suck in a breath, not realizing I'd been holding mine, when Farra tips her head back. Her eyes are so dazzling that they make my heart stop, and if they hadn't, her words would have. I've thought about it a lot. I nod, not daring to breathe. You fought for me. All this time, you've worked to give me everything. I love you, I whisper, and a tear tries to fall in response. I blink to keep it in place. I know, and you've proven that to me so many times over. And it's made me realize that if you can fight for me, then I can do the same for you. My heart jolts back to life with a sudden, thundering pace, and I gasp out, What? I want to fight for you, she squeezes me, because I love you. The tears do fall then. They pour down my cheeks as a harsh laugh escapes me, and I lean down to kiss Farra. I press a quick peck to her lips, moving to nip at her cheeks and nose. I cover every inch of her face with my adoration, and when I pull back, I blurt out without thinking, Farra, will you be my mate? She blinks and I press her harder to me. Officially be mine for all of Nagaland to know it. There's a flash of fear in her eyes, but as my thumbs stroke her sides, she starts to relax into my arms. Yes! I gulp hard. Really? Farra pushes up on her toes, her arms circling my neck and pulling me down to her. Just before our lips meet, she whispers back, Really? Chapter 25. Nashaer. The second our lips meet, I feel myself come back to life. Her words have restarted my heart, her touch has healed my mind, and her kiss mends my soul. I know now, more than ever before, that I would be and always have been absolutely nothing without Farra. The knowledge sparks a desperation deep in me, and I'm only urged on by the way she reacts to my every touch. I pull hard at her waist, and she moans against me. I nip her bottom lip, and she grinds her hips against me. This woman is making me dizzy, and yet she is the only thing keeping me grounded. I reach lower to cup her under her thighs, using my tail to swipe my desk clean and set her on the edge. Her legs immediately wrap around my waist, pulling me hard against her, and my shafts are already straining against my pants. I don't care, though. I want to take my time with her, and as I pull her shirt up above her head, I'm forced to break our kiss. I bite down on my bottom lip to keep from crying again as I take her in. I'm unbelievably lucky. Farra has a twinkle in her eyes as I lean back in to cup her face, and instead of reaching for me, her hand goes behind her back to unsnap her bra. I freeze, my eyes immediately darting down to watch her mounds bounce free. Her snicker pulls my gaze back up, and I only offer her a vicious smile. Now you've done it. Her eyebrow arches up, but I don't explain as I lay her back, pressing a soft to her lips before starting my descent. I kiss down her jawline, nibbling at her throat, and making my way across her collarbone. I leave a little trail down her stomach, watching the way her muscles flex beneath my touch. And when I come to her waistband, she gasps. I don't stop, though, grabbing the top of her pants with my teeth and pulling them down slowly. Farra's legs start to tremble, and when I look up, her hands are clutching at her own hair. I work my way back up her body, trailing kisses on the insides of her legs until she is squirming. Hold still, I tell her, pressing her hips down into the top of my desk. Stop teasing, she hisses back. Sorry for the interruption. I know you were gearing up for a steamy scene, but it's way too hot for YouTube.
If we want to keep sharing our stories for free, we have to abide by YouTube's guidelines.
To get the full unabridged audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Browse through unabridged audiobooks, countless ebooks and bundles offered at a discount.
If the thought of me whispering all the dirty details into your ear isn't enticing enough, use discount code YouTube30 to get 30% off of all digital products.
Story after story, audiobook after audiobook, the worlds of Protheka are waiting for you.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
But unabridged, it's unforgettable.
Chapter 26, Nashaer. 3 days have passed since I've asked Farra to be my mate, but they have not all been filled with the bliss I'd anticipated. Instead, 2 days have been spent with my love knotted with tension. We are returning to the castle today, a decision I made the morning after Farra chose me as hers. I knew I couldn't stand to hide out here forever, and there is some work to be done back at the palace if my promises to Farra are to go unthwarted. I reach across the bench on the front of my carriage to grasp Farra's hand, which was feverishly rubbing her left ear. "It's going to be okay," I tell her gently. She's been so nervous about standing before my mother again, despite my assurances. At least she trusts me enough to willingly come back. You can't know that. I squeeze her hand as we come around the last bend, the castle rising up in our view. I can. Just trust me. I do trust you. Farra swallows hard. But if they separate us... They won't, I whisper, pulling her close to tuck her into my side. Nothing will happen here, I promise. She still looks uneasy. But when the carriage rolls to the stop at the bottom of the steps leading up to the front door, she lets me help her out without protest. As soon as her feet hit the ground, her whole body stiffens, and instinctually my tail wraps around her ankles and I turn, taking a small step in front of her. My eyes land on the person at the top of the stairs that invokes such fear in Farra, my mother. I keep myself in between my mother and Farra as we ascend the steps. I shelter my mate, hoping she doesn't see how my mother is staring daggers at her small frame. "See?" I whisper, once we are inside and heading for the throne room. "I told you it's all going to be fine." I breeze into my father's throne room to find him already seated on his dais. We stop before him, and I tuck Farra closer to me as my father's gaze falls on her. "Son," my father greets me. "How are things in the north?" "Things are well, father." He nods, but his eyes are still on my mate. "That is not why we have returned. I come back with an announcement." Surprise colors his face. I had left this bit out of the letter that I had sent, informing them of my upcoming return. He's not used to me having tricks up my sleeve, but he's never met the real me before. This will be a truly shocking meeting for him indeed. "Please share, Nashaer." Farra tugs at me, but I shake my head at her. She may have concerns, but I don't. I've thought this over plenty, and I know this is what I want. "I'm giving up my right to inherit the throne," I tell him, with a wide, genuine grin. "And as I'm no longer in line for your crown, I'd like to ask for you to grant Farra mate status." I've never seen my father lose his composure like this. His eyes are wide, and his gaze keeps darting between Farra and I. Usually his responses are slow, calculated, but when he blurts out his response, I know that it might be the first time he's truly spoken to me. No games, no forethought. He shouted out the first that came to his mind, and I can appreciate that at least. "A prince giving up his right to throne for a human?" He blanches. "You're giving your life up for this?" My tail curls around Farra's ankles, but I keep my body in front of hers. "I would give up anything for her," I announce. "Son, do you realize—" "No!" My mother's sharp voice cuts into the fray. "No, he doesn't realize what he's doing. He's being foolish, ignorant, and selfish." She steps out from behind the dais where she must have been hiding, listening to our conversation, and I wonder how she even got back there. She always did seem to know how to slink around the castle without being seen. "Nashaer!" she cries, looking almost hysterical. "What are you doing?" "I'm choosing my life over yours," I answer, and with a backward glance toward Farra, I cross the room to where my mother is. "I've never wanted the throne. All I ever wanted was to be happy, and with my territory in the north and Farra by my side, I have the perfect life." Her eyes are pleading. "But all your hard work, you're just going to throw it away? For her?" She flings an arm out toward Farra, and out of reflex I catch her wrist. "It has always been your dream, Mother." I slowly lower her hand until I'm clutching it between the two of us. not mine. Something about my calm demeanor seems to break her. Her eyes had been aflame as she shouted at me, and they even flared when I caught her wrist. As my voice softened, though, her eyes started to dart around frantically, and finally, tears started to gather in her eyes. I don't know if she's trying to manipulate me, or if she genuinely is so upset about my choices that she is moved to tears, but either way I pull her to me. She cries as I hug her, and despite everything we've been through together, I feel my heart crack a little. My mother has always been there for me in some capacity. She's my constant, and I know it's going to be hard for me to leave. I'm all she has, and while I have found comfort, real, unconditional support and love, she will continue on without me. She shakes her head, and her next words are cut off with a sharp sob. I pull back a little, looking at her while I hold her shoulders. I'm sorry, Mother. You have to understand, though. I found my mate, and for a Naga, there is no greater honor and happiness. Her eyes soften a little, and I lower my voice. I have to get out of this castle, if not for me, then for her, but I will always be here for you. I squeeze her shoulders and tease up a corner of my mouth. As long as you don't touch my mate. My mother shudders, her eyes downcast, but she doesn't try to fight me anymore. She doesn't even seem to notice as I take a step back, already aching to close the distance between my mate and I again. I turn to see Farra's green eyes bright as she watches me. Just holding her gaze makes my heart thunder. Between my mother's outburst and the stare of my beloved, I've nearly forgotten where I am. I can't be bothered to care. For once in my life, I don't bother keeping up pretenses in front of my father. I don't care that some of my brothers stand alongside his throne sneering at me. No, I'd been so worried about them hurting Farra that I chose to keep it a secret. But I can see now that the best thing for her is for me to claim her. Then truly, no one can take her from me. Taking Farra's hands in my own, I lift them to my lips and brush a soft kiss along her knuckles. I love you, I whisper, more of a reassurance with my mother's outburst than anything. She smiles, and though her cheeks tinge pink, she whispers back, I love you. I pull her to me, wrapping her up in my arms, and turn to face my father. I'm about to bow out and take Farra back to my rooms when I see his face. His expression is alight with amusement, and I realize he's not staring at me but at Farra. At first, I worry that he's going to try and rip her from me when his lips part into a wide smile. You've convinced me, he says, and my brother's head snapped toward him. Mate status is to be granted to my son's mate, he announces loudly for all to hear. I can barely keep from exploding from excitement, and I turn to kiss Farra, holding her tight against me as I thank my father. Maybe there's more to him than I ever understood.
Chapter 27. Farra. Just breathe, I mutter under my breath. I rub my hand over the smooth stone that I took out of a bag from Nashaer's mother. The symbol on top means happiness in their native tongue, and she smiled at me when she saw it. That's all I've ever wanted for Nashaer, she told me. I guess I just got so wrapped up in what I thought would make him happy, I stopped listening. We've been trying hard to work on our relationship. To her credit, she hasn't attacked me again, and as a show of good faith, he rescinded her ban from the Northern Territory. She was more helpful today than I anticipated. Originally, Nashaer and I weren't going to allow his parents at the house, and while we aren't hosting anyone there, we did allow just the two of them to come by. His father brought wine and mead to celebrate with, congratulating Nashaer warmly. His mother, though, seemed to have all her attention on me, wanting to make sure that I was included in the Naga customs. When Nashaer tried to step in, to tell her to stop forcing me to be something I wasn't, I waved him off. I loved getting to know his customs. I'd been so accepted in the Northern Territory, sometimes I forgot I wasn't Naga. So when she braided colourful ribbons through my hair, telling me they stand for the virtues that build the foundation of a strong marriage, I felt a little bit of my anger toward her release. I brought you this. My head jerks up to see Nia approaching. She's an artist here in the territory who helps her mate with their garden, growing rare herbs and flowers to sell at the market. I've taken a liking to her, and I have to think she considers me a friend now. Thank you, I say, as I take a long necklace from her hand. I can smell the aromas of herbs floating up from the pouch tied to it as I slip it over my head. She hugs me. You look beautiful, she whispers, and then turns going up the aisle. Incorporating the few human traditions I know, Nashaer is already at the front with Healer Abba and Valore. He joked that the only man who should stand beside him and bestow upon him the rings should be the one who introduced us. Nashaer's relationship with all of his brothers has improved as he is no longer in the running for the throne. They seem more playful around him, and the tension he once felt seems to be gone. I take a deep breath and step out in view for all to see. First, my eyes go to Nia, who gives me a strong smile as she stands off to the left of the altar, waiting to stand by my side. Then, my gaze moves to Nashaer, and my heart almost drops out of my ass. He's so handsome in his royal garb, a highly decorated vest on top of a simple, fitted shirt. His pants fit him perfectly, and the whole outfit has been tailored to cut around his body perfectly. I move down the aisle slowly, reaching him at last, and he takes my hand, helping me up the steps to the altar. He squeezes my hands as our guests rise, moving toward us to drop flowers at our feet. I'm so lost in Nashaer's eyes that I almost don't hear the healer start the ceremony. He speaks in the Naga's native tongue, worshipping their gods above for this union and blessing the king for his approval. My mate told me the translation a few days ago so I wouldn't be lost. He continues through the rituals, using more herbs and flowers as he asks the gods to bless with fertility and prosperity, making me blush, and as it comes to a close, he takes the necklace from me. Pulling out the herbs that Naya grew just for me, he crushes them and rubs them across my forehead, and then turns to do the same to Nashaer. Abha raises his hands to the sky, shouting out to their deities, and just as he runs out of breath, he lowers his arms and head, sucking in a deep lungful of air. He says something to Nashaer that I recognise. Sumisi. The words almost blend together on a hiss, but it's the only phrase I know. Kiss me is what he taught me it means. Without waiting for my mate, I reach for him, pulling down to me. He chuckles lightly, just before our lips crash together, his hands catching my hips as he pulls me hard against him. The kiss is deep and fevered, but I'm careful not to open my mouth to him. When we finally manage to break apart, everyone around us cheers, and Nia and Valore move to pick up the flowers. They will be rained down on us as we leave to mate for the first time at the end of the reception. We wait as the guests filter out, clinging to each other, and as a group, we all move to the reception area. We chose to marry near the market area as we both love market days, but our reception is on the edge of the lake where we fell in love. It was the first time Nashaer opened up to me, and I'll never forget it. We arrive last, as is customary, to find the rows of tables set up and strings of lights hanging from the tree branches. Soft melodies weave through the air, and in the corner, I spot a string quartet. The sun is just starting to set, and everyone is seated at one of the tables. It gives us the perfect entrance as we wall between the tables to the open, grassy area for dancing. Nashaer grips my waist, pulling me close to him, and I place my hand in his. I've been practicing like crazy, even getting some of the servants to help me, and I'm still nervous. He takes the first step slow, guiding me through the motions. Of course, marrying a prince means my mate is an excellent dancer, but he'd have to be otherworldly to make me look graceful. I'm just glad that when I step on his toes, it doesn't hurt. Calm down, he tells me, spinning me in his arms. I press up against him, tightening my hold on him. I am calm. I can taste your fear in the air. He dips me back, kissing me long and deep so that I forget all my anxiety, When he pulls back, our eyes locked, he adds, "And your heart is pounding." "Of course it is now," I hiss as he pulls me to my feet, folding us back into the music seamlessly. My cheeks burn as I feel every pair of eyes on us. I've never been much of a dancer. "You look so beautiful. No one's looking at your feet. They won't even know that you haven't gotten a step right." I narrow my eyes at him, even as my heart leaps. "It's my wedding day. Aren't you supposed to be nice to me?" Nashaer snickers, twirling me. "I am." The music swells just before it starts to drift off, and our dance slows until we stop moving. I go to walk to our table, but Nashaer pulls me back, pressing me to him for another head-spinning kiss for all to see. I don't care this time, though. No, as he takes my face in his hands and kisses me hard, I'm too wrapped up in my gorgeous mate and my new perfect life to be bothered by the snickers and teasing as we kiss. I know that no matter what they say, they can't tear me down. I have everything now.
Orcs. Gargoyles. Vampires. Ice monsters. Demons of the dark. These beasts seek war, destruction, and power. And there's only one thing that can tame them.
Love.
This is your chance to get the uncut and unabridged audiobook bundle.
No detail is spared.
Use discount code YouTube30 for an additional 30% off of the already discounted price.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Get access to countless audiobooks and discounted bundles where I talk you through every last scene.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive. Chapter 28, Farra. "It's just you and me, my love," Nashaer says, as he pushes the door shut, his back pressed up against it. I pause in the centre of my room, turning around to look at him and bat my eyelashes. That's all I've wanted all day. His voice is a deep growl as he stalks toward me, his hands outstretched to catch my hips. Me too. He kisses me hard, smearing my lipstick. This dress has done nothing but tease me today. I ran my hands along the satin-smooth dress, pulling at the fabric to expose my upper thigh through the slit. "This old thing," I tease, biting my bottom lip as I stare at him. I thought it was a good mix between casual and sophisticated. "It's really hot is what it is," he rumbles, gripping my hips tighter and tossing me back on the bed. I yelp as I slam into the mattress, but I barely have time to get it out before Nashaer is on me again. I've never seen him so fevered to have me, but I'm not complaining, especially not as his mouth claims mine and his hands move down to find the edge of my dress. He's not wrong that it is a teasing outfit. With the thin straps, low back, and high slit along with how tight it hugs my figure, I knew that I would be the centre of Nashaer's attention today. Not that anything else ever is. He yanks at the dress, and when I hear it rip, I jerk back. I look down to see the slit is starting a little higher, but overall, it looks fine. "Don't tear my dress up." I give him a narrowed gaze. "You better take it off before I do." I scramble back off the bed as he crawls toward me, and he freezes as my hands come to my shoulders. Holding his eyes, I slip my straps off, gripping the loose material around my chest and pushing it down slowly. My fingers skim over my skin, and Nashaer's eyes follow them all the way down to the ankles. His gaze traces back up to me as I undo my bra, and his breath audibly catches as the strapless fabric drops to the ground. I love the way his jaw drops open just a little bit as he soaks in my naked form. Never have I ever had anyone stare at me like that. His eyes are full of lust, yes, but there's no malice in them. There's no promise to tear me apart. Instead, his gaze is soft, full of desire, and I know that I am going to be treasured tonight. That doesn't mean I'm going to make it easy on him.
As much as Samara and I want to finish what these two characters have started, Looks like this chapter is about to get too hot for YouTube to handle.
Unfortunately, we have to pause here because their guidelines won't allow us to reveal the spiciest details.
To keep bringing you these free audiobooks, we have to follow their rules.
But don't worry. You can experience the full, unabridged version over at worldsofprotheka.com, where the boundaries of passion and fantasy collide.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off any of our unabridged audiobooks set in the rich and immersive worlds of Protheka.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
With these scenes, it will be unforgettable.
Chapter 29. Farra. Couldn't you have the Southern Territory? I ask Nashaer as he sets another drink down on the table beside me. I think it's cute how he rushes to get me refills instead of calling a servant, wanting us to be alone on the beach. He snorts, sinking into his chair. I was given the North to prove myself. I stick out my bottom lip in a pout. But you are his favourite son. Can't you just switch? My love, you know how my brothers feel about me. No one will be switching. I huff, sinking lower in my chair, and Nashaer reaches over to take my hand. I thought you loved our territory. I can't help the soft smile that touches my face. I do, I say softly. But the winters are harsh. He sighs, rubbing a thumb along the back of my hand. I know. It's true that I've come to love the Northern Territory. The people there thoroughly accepted me, and the week after we married, the market was bustling with gifts for both of us. No one said a harsh word to me, and I found that I'm comfortable venturing outside the home without Nashaer. I'm sure I could come to love the people down here too, but as my mate keeps reminding me, we are only here for our honeymoon. I shouldn't get my hopes up when we will have to return home. I do like the sea. I start up again. Nashaer's head turns slowly to me, a bemused smile on his face. Let's swim, he offers, and I concede, knowing I'll never get to live in the oceanfront mansion just over the hill that his brother is letting us stay in. I take his hand as he leads me toward the water's edge. It's unseasonably warm, which has only made this trip better. That, and the fact that Nashaer hasn't put a shirt on in days. I love the unobstructed view. As he turns around, he runs his eyes down my body, and I know he's thinking the same thing. I don't know where he sourced so many bikinis from, but that's all he packed me for the trip, whisking me away on a secret. Just so you know, he says as he swims toward me. It's not normally this warm this time of year. I raise my eyebrows, walking out until the water hits my waist. Nashaer is already shoulder deep, but the water isn't that warm to me. I just got lucky. I think the gods just decided to bless us. I blow out a breath. The gods have never blessed me a day in my life. Nashaer freezes, mid-stroke, and I realise too late what I said. Oh no, I whisper, diving out toward him. He's still stiff as I wrap my arms around his neck. You have to know I didn't mean you. His lips press together in a thin line, and I pepper him in kisses. Nas, I whisper, hoping his rarely used pet name will lighten him up. You know I love you. He grunts, and I pull myself tighter against him, my heart squeezing painfully. I didn't mean it like that. I am blessed to be with you. His hands catch my waist, and I lean back to see a mischievous spark in his eyes. I know. I smack his chest as he chuckles, but he doesn't loosen his grip on me. You made me feel bad for nothing. You did say I wasn't a blessing. I try again to shove away from him. You know that's not what I meant. One hand slides up my back to tangle in my hair. I know, but you're so damn cute that sometimes I can't resist teasing you. My breath catches in my throat as he presses our foreheads together, my chest compressing the way it always does when he's this close. Suddenly my top goes loose, and I jerk back out of reflex, only to realise that it was Nashaer. What are you doing? I already told you. He kisses the tip of my nose and down my jaw. You are so damn cute. You're going to lose it, I snap, as undoes the other string and my bikini top starts to float over. He nips at my neck, growling, I don't care. Nashaer.
This scene is about to get too steamy for YouTube's comfort. And as much as we'd love to keep going, their guidelines say we need to stop here.
To continue releasing these free audiobooks on this platform, we've got to play by the rules.
The passion doesn't end here.
Visit worldsofprotheka.com to hear the full, uncut version of this fantasy romance, and every daring moment that YouTube can't handle.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off unabridged audiobooks in the worlds of Protheka.
Don't let YouTube hold you back. Immerse yourself in a world of magic, danger, and unfiltered passion.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
Listen unabridged and you'll never want to go back.
Chapter 30. Nashaer. My love? I call as I open the front door. I had to go into the office today, and I missed Farra terribly. I don't hear her as I walk through our home, though. She must be in our room sleeping. She's been exceptionally tired lately, most likely due to me. But I don't mind it. She has many years of sleep and relaxation to catch up on. I push open the door to our room, but she's not there either. Our bed is rumpled but empty, our sitting room abandoned, and the attached office has been entered all day. Panic coats my tongue as I head back toward the door, and then I hear the toilet flush. Relief and embarrassment floods me as I turn around to see Farra coming out of the bathroom. She must not have heard me come in because her eyebrows are pinched together, her hand pressed to her stomach. She wipes her mouth as she sighs, and just as she goes to turn toward the bed, she spots me. A radiant smile spreads across her face. I hold my arms open to her. She walks right into my embrace and my tail curls around us both as I kiss her on top of the head. How was your day, my love? I mostly slept. My mouth presses into a tight line as I lean back. Again? Are you okay? She shrugs. I haven't been feeling well, but the winter weather is behind us now. I think I may just have a lingering cold. Are you sure? Farra laughs, reaching up to touch my face. I've been married to you for 6 blissful months, and you somehow always find something to worry about. I lift her up in my arms so that her firm ass settles in my hands and her legs wrap around my waist. She settles her arms around my neck and I lean my forehead to hers. I love the way it feels to touch her, and her eyes are so close and dazzling that I do it frequently throughout the day. I will always worry about you. You are my treasure, my heart and soul, and I can't let anything happen to you. She reaches up to rub her ear, and my heart starts to thunder. She's nervous. Can you take me to the library for some tea? I was about to head there before you got home. A smirk touches my lips. She never wants me to carry her, and I quickly turn before she can change my mind. It's a short walk down to the library. I had it built close to my rooms, after all. When I had the wall removed between our 2 rooms to make one large suite, I almost considered building a second just for Farra. As I turn into the room, though, I freeze. The healer is sitting there, tea with 3 cups on the table. Farra leans back to smile at me, planting a kiss to my lips before sliding off of me. Nashaer, the healer greets me. I made tea for us all. Come sit. Farra tugs at me. My heart is hammering in my chest. Farra has been so tired lately, saying she has a cold with her stomach and head hurting. Now the healer is here with special brewed tea. I sniff it, recognizing some of the herbs my mother used to give me when I felt ill. What is it? I croak out, already on the edge of panic. Farra's eyebrows pinch together. What is what? You have news. My eyes dart between her and the healer. Do you know why you're sick? Is that why healer Abha is here? He's here to bring me tea to settle my stomach. I feel like I'm going to scream, my eyes to the healer. Is she well? He beams. She is perfect. Stop worrying. She pats me on the arm. I feel like I'm going to explode. I have reason to worry. I stare down the healer. Tell me. Farra huffs beside me. You always ruin surprises. What? This gives me pause. What kind of surprise would include making my mate so ill, even if the healer claims she is not? I had a whole thing planned, she grumbles as she climbs to her feet. But you are so impatient. Just look. Even though she sounds mildly irritated, there's still a huge smile on Farra's face as she lifts up her shirt. My eyes trail across her skin, trying to see what's different. She's put on some weight, but not unhealthily so. She looks even more beautiful with her sensual curves now that she is able to eat freely. Other than that, I don't discern a difference. Her skin is the same shade, and I see no markings. I'm dumbfounded. She must see it too. Her gaze darts down, and a frown tugs at her lips. She looks to the healer who says, "Feel her skin." It's an odd request, but I reach out tentatively toward the exposed skin of her stomach. I'm expected to feel the smooth, soft flesh that I'm used to, but as my fingers brush over it, there's something there. It's almost imperceptible, and if we were lying in bed, I would probably not even notice it. With all the focus placed on her stomach, though, I can pick up on the subtle change. The surface feels almost rough. It's not like her normally supple skin. In fact, it almost feels like mine. My eyes snap up to meet her green ones, widening as it all rushes over me. Her smile returns and she nods. "You're going to be a father," she whispers. Hearing the words out loud, confirming what I could only hope makes my heart leap in my chest. A father. I am going to be a father. I leap to my feet, lifting Farra up in my arms. "We're going to have a baby!" I shout as I spin her, and then I freeze, setting her down. I drop to my knees, cupping her belly. I didn't hurt it, did I? I shake my head. I'm going to need to be more careful. Farra pats my head. I'm not as fragile as you think, and neither is this baby. Believe it or not, but I can still move around pregnant. The word alone makes me want to weep. I look to the healer, wanting confirmation. What you said earlier is true. The baby is well? He nods. I checked her this morning. Farra and the baby are perfectly healthy, and with the delivery of herbs, her pregnancy should be pretty easy. It hits me then. You don't have a cold. No, she giggles. The baby and I weren't agreeing on food the last few weeks. Now that I know, I can watch my diet a little better and drink plenty of tea. I press kisses to her abdomen, unbelievably happy. I can't believe you're pregnant. I lean my forehead against her torso the same way I do to her. I can't wait to be your father, I whisper. A sniffle pulls my attention up, and I see tears pouring down Farra's face. Immediately I'm on my feet again, cupping her face. Farra, I coo. What's wrong? Does this news not excite you? It does, she whimpers. I'm just so happy to see you react like this. I didn't know if you were going to want kids. Oh, my love, all I want is a happy family with you. I want these halls filled with laughter and noise, and our home to be full of love. She throws her arms around me, pulling me down for a deep kiss, and I pull her hard against me. In my arms, all my dreams have come true. I have a child. I have a mate. I have the freedom of my own life. There is nothing more I can ask for. For the first time in my life, I feel complete.